All right, all right, all right. We are live, guys. Good morning and welcome to Interview with the Man, episode 206. And I am joined today by none other than the man, the myth, the legend, the non-self-appointed godfather of the manosphere, Mr. Rollo Tomassi, who
That
is
would be me.
the author of the Rational Male book series, which is a bestseller, and he's also drinking from Mjolnir. Is that a Thor?
Mjolnir.
Is
This
that
is
a
my
Thor
Thor.
cup?
See?
That is so
Yeah, it's the
cool.
Thor hammer.
You are
Yes.
worthy.
Yes.
Good morning, Rolla. How you doing, man?
I am worthy. That's funny. Everybody gives me grief about that too. 'Cause sometimes I wear my little Mjolnir necklace and everything, and they go, "Whoa, dude, are you into like paganism? Are you a heathen?" I'm like, "Nah, dude. It's just that's my. I'm actually my ethnicity is Scandinavian descent, so that's why I wear
Oh,
stuff like
cool,
that
cool.
once
That's
in
why
a
you
while.
always love that cold ass weather.
Yes, yeah, and it is. You got me up pretty early this morning, so it's
Yes.
freezing my
So
balls off
thank
in
you
here.
so much. You woke up at like what 5:30 or something for
I
this?
got up about 4:30 this morning, so I could. I usually like whenever I do my early morning shows, like with Pat Campbell or something like that. I'm usually up probably about an hour and a half beforehand because I kind of need to like get my brain started and then sort of catch up with what's happened. It's interesting doing really what you and I do is we have to stay on top of like current events
Yeah.
and really, and I'm not just saying like, oh, Kobe Bryant died. I'm talking about like just like somebody wrote a post about like how somebody sent me a link to a post about how Utah is trying to ban pornography in the state of Utah.
Pornography.
That's the kind of stuff I learn about at 4:30 in the morning.
If you go to Korea, like pornography is banned across the nation, like through the IP. You cannot access pornography. Like
Yeah.
you can dig deep, but if you're just like an average Joe trying to look for it, like you're gonna have to like run a VPN and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that. Being in this, I don't know, I don't even want to know what to call this. Like I'm an author,
Yeah.
and I'm glad people see me as sort of a famous or a personality in this sphere. But being in this and doing what even in my outside, even my real job, which is in the liquor industry, and well, really kind of, I don't want to say event promotion, but like really kind of like brand management.
Yeah.
I have to, I think really today you have to be global. You have to have a grasp on what's going on in other countries. And as you, as you get into these kinds of things, or as you like get onto things like Twitter, or you get deeper into it, it broadens your understanding of how things are in other countries. Like when I was talking to Andrew Tate, and he was in like Dubai or something, like he couldn't talk to me because he was concerned about the censorship in that country. And that's a first world country, let's be honest. So.
There's like in certain without running some certain VPNs, you can't video chat in Dubai because a woman can call you and be naked, basically.
Yeah. There's things I take for granted just being here, especially in Nevada. Nevada is one of the 50 states. It's probably one of the most
you can do whatever. You can shoot guns.
Yes.
You can smoke weed. You can go to a brothel.
You can walk down the street of Nevada with an open container of alcohol and nobody blinks.
Oh, really?
What's funny is in my my line of work, I've been doing my real job has been in the wine and spirits industries for going on like 20 years now. And part of my career in that field is knowing what alcohol laws are and what compliances are for every state of the union. Utah being one of the most tightly controlled states for alcohol, but Tennessee, Florida, especially the southern states, they have really kind of weird strictures on alcohol. And then you get to Nevada. And then you could go into like any 7-Eleven and they've got like hard liquor like right at the counter.
You can I'm kind of desensitized to that because in Japan there's hard liquor in every 7-Eleven. There is no open container law and you can buy alcohol 24 hours 365. There's no problem. Can you
Yeah.
buy alcohol 360 24 hours
Oh yeah.
in Nevada?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You
Oh
can't do it in
wow.
Florida. Like when I was in
No.
Florida, in fact, you cannot. I didn't know if anybody knows. If you're in Florida on a Sunday morning, you cannot buy alcohol until like afternoon in Florida,
Do
which is
you know who caused that?
no idea.
It's
I
the
know
it's
it's a compliance law. That's all I had to do. TTB said so, so I obeyed.
Mickey Mouse has a lot to do with
Oh,
those
really?
things. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
They want to
wouldn't
keep
shock me.
family friendly. So today we're gonna, guys, for all you guys, I mean, most of you guys know who Rollo is, but for you guys who don't know,
Mhm.
today we're gonna have like a little bit more of a kind of who Rollo is, but behind the veil of Rollo Tomassi. I don't want to say veil because
Under
it
the
sounds like,
beanie,
yeah, you know, I don't want to say veil. It's like you're like covering something, but just kind of.
Rollo under the beanie.
I'm not going to ask you about hypergamy today. I mean,
Oh,
like typically every interview.
but it's so intrinsic to my life now.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
tell me this, man. So like obviously, you know, you are a young Chad and stuff. Tell me about
Yeah.
your life, like growing up. Like where were you when were you born? Where were you born? And
Where were you
tell
born?
me a little bit about
Um,
just Rollo Tomassi.
I was born in a place called Pasadena, California. It's in
Mhm.
Southern California. It's a little bit, gosh, where would it be? It's just a touch kind of northeast, I guess, of Los Angeles. When I was born in 1968. I'm 51 years old right now.
Mhm.
I know that's hard to believe. He's so young and smooth, right?
I know.
But I was born and raised really in Pasadena, California, and I stayed in Southern California until I was about 27 years old.
Mm.
And let's see. So I grew up really in the 80s. I'm a kid of the 80s.
Mhm.
So when I was like, if you ever watch Stranger Things and those like the nerdy kids playing D&D and running around and CB radios and all this stuff, that was me.
Right.
Like I was when I love that show. I mean it's a good show just in general, but like it's the nostalgia value for like I'm Generation X, so to see stuff like that, it kind of scratches an itch, I think. But I grew up in a single parent family.
Oh,
I
did
was
you?
actually my dad, not my mom, my dad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Um, yeah, I have kind of a weird kind of upbringing with respect to my parents. My
What
dad,
happened?
well, I'll tell you what happened. One day, my parents never fought. Right, they never
Mhm.
fought in front of us. So, like when they split up and they decided to finally get a divorce, it was like really kind of a shock to my system and my brother's system when we were little. I think I understand what I was going through a little bit better now because being a parent myself and, raising my daughter from like 0 to 21, where she is right now. Like whenever my daughter hit a new sort of like benchmark, whenever she hit like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, maybe most parents do this, but I know I did. I always thought, well, what was I doing when I was like 7 years old or 8 years old, or what was I going through back then? I went through, and then recalling that I went through some pretty heavy shit back then.
Mhm.
I My parents split up when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I think maybe I might have been 9. I'm not really sure, but it was in the late 70s.
Mhm.
And my dad is, if you want to know where I get my pragmatic side, it's mostly from my dad. My dad is very rational, very, very reasonable, atheist for most of his life.
Would you say he's a
Uh,
rational male?
oh, definitely. Well, he definitely would not rational. Yes, red pill. No. um, but one day he just got all of us together at the dining room table and said, "Your mother and I are having some problems, and we think it's best that we separate right now." And that was it. End of discussion. And my dad sat us down at the table, like we're like it's a board meeting.
Yeah.
Like we're all, okay, sounds good. We're gonna all agree. Like, and so, and then my mom ended up leaving. My mom was the one who ended up leaving the house, which was like, remember, this is the 70s. So like the divorce and all the stuff that we sort of talk about in the sphere today was sort of in its infancy back then. And my dad got custody of us. And my dad's story is that he got custody of me and my brother. And it's
Mhm.
just me and my brother. I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And he got custody of us, and he was my dad's side of the story is, well, your mom never showed up to like come to get custody of you. And then my mom's side of the story is, well, I didn't have the kind of money that your dad does, and it was kind of a lost cause for me to try to get custody of you. Now that I'm and now that I'm older and wiser, I understand the nature of both of my mom and my dad. In fact, I'm probably going to write a post about this, but I definitely want to do my own, like on my own channel on YouTube. I want to do a show about how red pill awareness affects your understanding of your parents and your upbringing and who they are as sort of human beings. Because I had to go through that. I'm sure a lot of other guys have to go through that too. It's one thing to say, well, women aren't like, the way that, Disney and your upbringing really taught you the way that they're supposed to be. But that's one side of the red pill. Sometimes that's really hard to accept, but it's really hard to accept the nature of your mom or the nature of your dad or those things in a red pill sense. And
it's very
coming
hard
to terms with those, man,
very
it's tough. Like knowing who your parents, like knowing the humanity of your parents is really, really jarring for people, because and I know this because I do this, my wife does, we want to present our best selves to our kids, right? We want to say, like, daddy dropped acid, daddy smoked weed, daddy, or mommy did coke, or I'm not the first boyfriend that mommy ever had, kind of thing. Understanding the humanity of us is kind of jarring to kids who've been brought up to think that mommy and daddy are perfect. And so anyways, I was brought up by my dad, and
so the
latchkey kid.
The statistics always say like people who are brought up by the father are like exponentially brought up differently and better than being raised by a single mom. I was raised by a single mom, and like I don't think you even know this about me, but like at like 10 years old, my mom was like dating some guy that I know was like a drug dealer, and like they brought me to the nightclub, and I was like in the VIP at 10 years old in like the China Grill.
That's where you got it from. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that too. I'll tell you what's funny is a little bit more background about my parents. My dad, like I said, was very, very rational, very, very reasonable.
What do you do for a living?
Secular humanist. My dad was he was an administrative director for a hospital system.
Oh, that's good money.
So back then it was great money. My dad was like on top of the world. And eventually he became the vice president of a hospital, and that's when it was really good for him. But I'll tell you that the tragic part is, I remember when my dad had celebrated his 50th birthday, because I was 20. And so I came to his party, and had all these people, and all of his coworkers, and all the people who he thought were like his friends, and just like drinking wine and playing the piano and all this other shit, and just having a blast for his 50th birthday. By the time he was 55, the hospital system that he was employed by got bought out by a big like corporate interests or whatever. They went in and fired everyone from like upper management on down through middle management. My dad was a vice president. He was let go, got a good compensation for it, but basically this is what they call cleaning house. Like they'll come in, they'll buy out the hospital, and they'll put their own people in there as the administration. And my dad was never able to snap back from that. He had my father, and I this is a valuable lesson. One of the few valuable lessons I learned from my dad was never to put your identity into what it is that you are doing, because my dad was his job. That's like, once you take that away from him, like that's where he got his social proof. That's where he got his status. That's where he got his money. That's where he got his, gravitas. That's where his identity was. And once that was whipped away from him, my dad got zeroed out really fast, and only at 5 years later, at 55.
So let me ask you this. So obviously the money was good. Everything was good at home. Why did they split?
Well, that was different. That was a different time. My dad actually remarried too. I had a stepmother. She ended up divorcing. They ended up divorcing too later on. But yeah, let me tell you, you want to know where my red pill education came from? It came from my stepmother and understanding who my dad was. My dad was very blue pill. He was very kind of blue pill, but blue pill in the old social contract way. Yeah. So my dad was from the generation where, you go in and you put in an honest day's work and you get an honest day's pay, and you work the same job, or like you don't jump around jobs. You only stay at one job, and you just do that until you're 65. You get your pension, and then you go retire and play golf from 65 until you die in Florida, or that kind of generation. Like that was the dream, the nuclear family dream. And my dad was thrown into really, I don't think he realized this, but it was the social upheaval from the sexual revolution on through the 80s and into the 90s. And I don't think he ever really learned how to cope with that, because my dad was playing by the old set of books. And if you've read I think it's my second book, I've got a post in there where I talk about the old set of books and the new set of books. Mm-hmm. My dad was definitely an adherent of the old set of books. And he never really understood why women didn't play by the rules that they were supposed to play by. Mm-hmm. And so my dad was kind of, he was very susceptible to, like, especially during the 70s, the early 70s, when sort of not the hippie generation, but like when sexual restrictions, sexual mores kind of opened up a little bit more in the 70s, like disco era, that kind of shit.
Right.
Beatles, and all that crap. So I don't think he really understood how to deal with that. But that was when my dad sort of started getting interested in he never had an affair, but my mom said that he did, but my dad denied that he did. And he ended up being sort of a Captain Save-A-Ho for some people, some women that he knew back then. He never banged them, but he was like, he had sort of like women would call it an emotional affair. And because he was too blue pill to actually cheat on my mom, but he would, and I still see a lot of guys do this today, is they'll get wrapped up in like cam girls, right? Or they'll have that. I think I hate to say this, but like if my dad had been born at a different time, he might have been one of these guys who would have got wrapped up in like cam girls, or would have had an emotional affair. Do you ever see that movie called Her?
Yeah,
and it's the guy Joaquin Phoenix is in it.
Falls in love with Scarlett.
Yeah, falls in love with Scarlett Johansson, and it's just an AI thing.
Great movie, very dark.
That very, very dark, but it will teach you a lot about male nature and how, like, this is why you need to sort of kill your blue pill self. I would see my dad as kind of like that for it back then, if you can imagine somebody like that in the 70s. And they just split, man. There was no like big drawn out fight or anything like that. That's why I said it was kind of a shock to me and my brother. So, by the time I'm 10 years old, I'm living alone with my brother and my dad. And my dad's a hard ass. He was a real hard ass. And in some ways that was good, and in some ways that was really bad. You know how, like, they say, like, what is it, like in Spartan culture, like when a boy reaches like 8 years old or whatever, they tear the son away from the mother and they put the kid into like training or battle or whatever. That's kind of like what I had to deal with, but like not because that was their moral imperative. It was just what happened. And so my brother and I had one common interest, which was beating the shit out of each other. So that was pretty much. And I was a creative. I've always been a very, people don't, well, I mean, obviously you can see I'm a musician, but like, I've always been a very creative person. I've always drawn. I've been a drawer. I was the kid who could draw like album covers on your book covers when you were in high school. In fact, I would have girls come up to me and say, can you can you draw the album cover for Duran Duran or something on
man.
On my book, Duran? Yeah. Oh, I love Duran Duran, but like,
me too.
But back then it was like, I was more into Iron Maiden and Ozzy and stuff like that. But
I got a picture here of you when you were 28 years old. I don't know if anybody's really seen this.
But, yeah, you can post it. That's fine. I put it on Instagram not too long ago.
Yeah, this is Rollo at 28 years old. I showed this to one of my mates here in Tokyo, and he's a real red pill savage. This guy is a monster. And he's like,
Mhm.
good Lord, this guy got so much pussy probably.
Well, that's the second half of my story right there. When I was in high school, I was very blue pill and very, I don't want to say I wasn't really a simp, but
Mhm.
I was operating from my dad's playbook, which is, you gotta treat them nice, and you gotta be friends with them, and you gotta be friends first, and then things will work from there, and blah blah blah. And it's just bullshit. And so I ended up, like, by the time I first got laid when I was 17 years old.
Oh, me too.
And I had a girlfriend. My first real girlfriend she ended up being a real whack job. But um, I ended up, at 19, I moved to Santa Cruz, California, and I lived in Santa Cruz for about a year, like not even a year,
Why'd you
maybe
move
like
there?
10 months for the girl. Like, she was going to UCSC,
Oh,
and I was like, okay, I'm going to go follow too. And because I thought back then, like, people wonder, like, well, um, when I talk about things, particularly in my second book, when I talk about, like, timelines for women's, phases of maturity, and there's a part in that book, in that timeline, where I talk about the break phase. And the break phase is right around like 17, 18, 19 years old for most men. And it's when they have to sort of separate themselves from their high school socialization and really kind of transition into an adult, hopefully into an adult, from an adolescent social skill set into an adult social skill set. And it's right about that time where, um, women are starting to realize what their sexual agency can bring them in life, because
they get
they're
tainted by
hitting,
the
like,
dark side.
yes, by the time they get to be 22, 23, they're already peaking in their sexual market value.
Yeah.
That starts right around 18 or 19 for women, if they're good looking and they take care of themselves and they understand the game. And then, so guys at that age, we're just left with dick in hand, unless we're like really on top of our game.
You got a good father or something, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And so what happens is guys get invested in this blue pill ideal. You at no other time in your life, and this is, I know about my history, at no other time in your life will you be more ideal, or, idealistic, than when you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old as a guy. And had I met the right woman at that time, had I met a woman who was of a similar mind, I probably would have gotten married at 19 or 20. And I know lots of guys who do marry very young, and then they end up ruining their lives because they made a really bad choice back in when they didn't know any different. But that break phase is when you have your high school girlfriend and she goes, I'm going off to college. I think maybe it's best that we break up. And then the guy goes, no, 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 I'm going to go to college with you. And he basically rearranges his life to facilitate the relationship. And that's what I did. And, I learned a valuable lesson for that. She ended up cheating. Like, I moved to Santa Cruz when I was 19. And I moved probably like 2 or 3 months before she got there. And in the time that it took between her moving there and me moving there, she'd already cheated on me like twice, I think.
How did you find out? This was before the age of
She told me.
smartphones.
She just told me.
Oh,
She
wow. What a
straight up said,
bitch.
because I don't think she wanted me to go. I think she was kind of hoping that I was just going to break up with her before she went.
And this was your
But
first girlfriend?
my first real girlfriend, the first time I ever got laid. And so, that, I think when guys are sort of idealistic and we're blue pill and we first get laid, we think that's, oh, this is it. This is great. I'm going to do everything. Like we're taught this idea that, like, relationships are hard work and you really got to put a lot into it and you got to be good at it. And we guilt young men, even to this day, we guilt young men into believing that it is their sort of masculine duty to facilitate a relationship, to be the guy who's there through thick and thin, and that's what defines a real man, is how supportive he is of his wife, and he's got to be he's got to have her interests and the family's interests, and when you're idealistic and stupid at 18 or 19 years old, you we'll make some pretty dumb decisions back then. And I told my daughter this. I said, and she hated me for saying this at the time, but now she understands. I told her when she was like 14, 15, 16, I said, I hope you don't have a boyfriend when you are a senior in high school. And she's like, Daddy. And I'm like, no, I honest to God hope you have no boyfriend, because I don't want you to have to go through that kind of crap. And now at 21, she understands what I'm talking about. So that was my experience at 19. And then I moved back to Los Angeles at 20. And from about 21 until I was 25, about 4 or 5 years, maybe 26, I played in the Hollywood metal scene for a long time.
And I want to talk about that. What got you interested in playing in the metal scene? What I don't know. Were you lead singer? What was
easy. No, I got into it because I want to get laid.
Well,
let's be honest. It wasn't because I wanted to save Tibet.
Why do you think I came to Japan to study the culture? Be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always been a rocker kid. I picked up guitar when I was about 14 years old. I learned real early that women love musicians.
Oh, dude, let me tell you something, Rollo.
Remember, this is like the early to middle 80s. So.
Dude, here in Japan, no matter where I go, I used to live in the boonies. I used to live on the west side. No, used to live in the east side. Every time there's some Japanese guy in the street playing his guitar, there's like 3 or 4 hot girls standing there with their hands on their chest, enamored. Enamored, dude. I hate those guys. I can't play I can only play video games. I can't play a fucking instrument, but it's unbelievable. Like, I don't understand the magic behind it, but
well, like I said, I've always been a very creative person. If I'm honest, I'm probably better at graphic and visual arts than I am at music, but I apply my creativity in a lot of different ways. So, and music was one way I could do it. Obviously I write, that's another way I do it. I draw, I paint, I sometimes I try to sculpt sometimes. And
you're an avid fencer too, though.
I used to be a well, say I wasn't an Olympic caliber fencer, but I used to do tournaments anyways when I was in college. I picked up fencing when I was in college.
How old were you when you picked it up?
Gosh, I think I would have been like 20, 22. That's when I like my deal with my dad back then. Like when I moved back from Santa Cruz, my dad said, just get your ass in college, and then you can live in the the back house or whatever for a while. And then that worked for a little bit, and then I just decided that it was easier to take chicks back to a place in North Hollywood than it was to get them back to Pasadena. So that's when I.
How long did you practice fencing? How long did you do that?
Well, I still fence right now. I just
I saw you geared up the other day.
I do it recreationally. I don't do it like in any kind of competitive capacity. I mean, I guess technically it's a martial art. So
it is.
I'll tell you. Okay. I'm going to give you the real deal. Okay. So God, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. I give you the juice, man. Just remember that. When I first started fencing, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. I'm sort of this nerdy, LARPy kind of kid back then. Even though I'm pulling chicks at 22, and I'm living like sort of the alpha dream as far as that time is concerned. Remember, this is like 88, 89, 90. So I'm going to like a Pasadena Community College, and they have a fencing team there, and I'm like, this looks like fun, right? It was just something cool because it's something nobody else was doing at the time, and I was lifting, but I wasn't like my brother was a amateur circuit bodybuilder for a while, and so I was lifting and I was in good shape, but I wasn't like my brother was competitive, I wasn't. And so I got into it and I started doing tournaments and stuff, and then so I'm into it for about 8 months to a year. And the guys on the team would go to the Los Angeles area Renaissance Fair. That was down there, and that is a big ass fair even today.
Oh
And
wow.
what they would do is, to make money for the fencing team, is they would go down there. They had a little area that they would set up, and they would give fencing lessons just to like kids and people who wanted to take a half an hour fencing lesson from from a complete amateur already. So we would go down there, and man, I tell you, it was never easier to get laid than at that Renaissance fair,
Those
particularly
girls
as
are
a
freaks,
fencer.
dude.
The chicks are fucking freaky even now.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of sad, because the Renaissance Fair used to be so cool back then, but
Ye
now it's
old
sort of turned into
slut.
now it's the cosplay fair. Or they might as well just call it the cosplay fair. But so what I would do is I would go down there, and we would set aside a week, sometimes 2 weeks, because it went for like sometimes 6 and 8 weeks, because it was one of the biggest fairs that was down there. And so we'd go down there, we'd camp. You have to bring your car and everything, and camp. And dude, it was just like, you had to be careful, because you would be hungover. Even at like 22 years old, you'd still be kind of like hungover from the night before. So you had to be careful. But I fenced competitively. And I really kind of got into it a little bit more when I realized that I could turn it into getting laid occasionally at things like that. I
Girls like
also
aggression. They like
I did
combat sports.
another thing people don't realize is I also did a lot of Shakespearean acting back then. And the last time I acted in a live stage play was when I was about like right around the time that picture was taken there.
Oh wow.
When I was
did that
28,
too.
I played the lead role in Macbeth. I was Macbeth in at a
I
theater thing.
was the good thief that was crucified next to Jesus
Oh, really?
On the Easter.
Instead
I
of the
just, you
bad
know,
thief.
I was like, I said, remember me when you go to heaven today. And and then the
Yeah.
bad thief got his eyes eaten out. So wait,
Yeah.
so how long were you competitively doing? Like, was it how many years were you fencing and training and
Let's
all that?
see. So here's what happened is when I was so I started when I was younger, but it was just sort of something I
How
just
old were
kind
you
of
when you started?
I started probably 21, 22.
Okay.
And then I got into like I was playing in the Hollywood metal scene. I did all this stuff, and I got a little bit older, and then I got into my my mid-20s, when I was sort of just kind of destroyed by my BPD girlfriend. And I gave up a lot of the things that I really loved doing, because I thought that
Oh,
would make the relationship, like that would solve our problems, which were really her problems, but she wanted me to believe that I was the source of the problems.
oh God.
And so I kind of gave it up for a while. And then when I moved to Northern California, I picked it up again. And really, when I was about 26, 27, 28, right around there, that's when I started doing it competitively in San Francisco and some other areas as well. I was also part of a local fencing team that was up in Northern California area. And we would go to events like I would go to Vegas, I would go to San Francisco, I would go to LA, San Diego. I was never going to be good enough to do Olympic stuff, but it was fun to go do like local tournaments. And so that's basically what I did. And then it really helped me when I finally gave up foil and I started fencing épée and saber. And saber was where I took off, because foil was I liked foil, but the rule, I don't know if you know anything about fencing, but the rules for foil are a lot more nuanced and a lot more delicate than, say, like épée, where it's just like bam, got you, or it's like or saber, where it's much more physical. It's like
Yeah.
it's much more aggressive.
They don't, but the saber doesn't bend, but the foil does, right?
Yeah, saber is um saber is arms all the way up, and the only thing that's illegal to hit in saber is legs. So pretty much like the helmet, the forearm. In fact, that's a prime target, is to hit like right here, like to to underneath. That's a point right there. It's one of the easiest points you can get. You can see a qualitative difference between a foil fencer and a saber fencer. And most guys fence all three, but once I started picking up épée, that I found my weapon finally, and that's what I started doing.
Have you ever seen my lightsaber videos?
Yeah, I have.
They said so. I watch a lot of
That's
Star Wars
basically
theory.
kendo. Yeah.
I watch a lot of Star Wars theory, and they
Mhm.
actually say if lightsabers were a real thing, the most efficient way to fight with a lightsaber would be fencing style.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it would. I think that when George Lucas came up with that stuff, it was really based on like kendo, and
Mm,
people want to say, well, what about it's samurai style, and I guess it's very kind of like dancerly, it's
yeah,
it's a style. Like kendo is almost a style that was made for like Hollywood.
yeah.
When I fence, one of the things that I think that kind of is off-putting to people when they watch fencing, like real, like if Olympic style fencing, is that it's not like really flashy and you're doing all these, you're blocking behind your back and those kinds of things. It's just it's a sport is what it is. And it's if unless you do it, I don't think you can really fully appreciate it. It's kind of like golf, right? Like I play golf as well. And so when I like before I played golf, I would, God forbid, I would ever watch, a golf tournament or the Masters or whatever. I would never bother with that. But once I started playing and I understood how difficult it is to do the things that these guys do, then you're like, holy shit, this is great.
Hmm. So you moved down there so we're gonna go back in the time machine. So you moved
Mm-hmm.
down there for the girl at 19 years old. How
I moved to
long?
Santa Cruz for I moved to Santa Cruz for the girl, and then about 8 months later, I moved back to Los Angeles because all that. I finally got sick of it, and I was just like, forget it, it's not going to happen. And so I just decided to move back to LA because there's more opportunities in LA, and I wanted to rock, man. I wanted to get in a band. I'd been pretty much kind of planning most of my teenage years around getting into a band and
Mhm.
and doing something musically because that's what was going on back then. Remember, this is like I grew up, my formative years, I guess, were pretty much from like 1982 all the way through 88, 89, somewhere around there. And
Oh.
88 I would have been 20 years old. So,
So which rock like what was like your pinnacle moment when you realized like, wow, these musicians get a lot of girls and I want to do that? Like,
oh
did you
boy.
see something on the
Oh,
TV or what was
oh,
that?
oh, no, no, no. Oh, well, when I was obviously like growing up, like in high school, I had long hair from the time I was about 15 all the way until I cut it a little bit for my senior photos, but
Mm.
it was still kind of longish. And then I regretted doing that. And I had long hair from the time technically really from the time I was 16 all the way till I was about 30 years old. And then I cut my hair right before my daughter was born. And because I was, I had to be a little more responsible. I had to get some more. Had to get a job, and I got a baby on the way, kind of thing. And so like people like right now, this is like my hair is as long as it's been in a very long time. I decided to grow it out back in 2018, right around like October of 2018. So this is about a year and 4 months of growth. But back then, I realized I can remember one time I was sitting down with a group of my high school friends,
Mhm.
and I remember a girl saying, "I love guys with long hair." That's all I had to hear. I was like, "Okay, here we go," and so, but back then things were a little bit different. So, like when women are watching, or well, girls, when teenage girls were watching like Poison or Motley Crue or Rat or any of
Mhm.
the glam bands back then, most women, like the girls back then, really liked commercial kind of what we would call hair metal or hair rock or butt
Yeah.
rock or whatever you want to call it right now.
Yep.
um, you want to know why a band like Steel Panther is very popular today is because all those chicks that were from the 80s, they are still want to go out and rock out, and that Steel Panther scratches an itch for them for sure.
It's
And
funny
so
because your wife, like I've seen pictures of your wife, beautiful
mm,
lady, and she's
yep,
like she looks like the traditional like
the chick
white
from the
girl
80s.
who like
Mhm.
likes rock bands from the 80s. It's like a perfect match.
She's it's interesting. My wife is definitely a lady of the 80s. So and
They were
yeah,
they were good
so
then, I would say. I would say
well,
American
I,
women were
I think
good
that's
then.
funny because like I can remember like a lot of guys. I remember in the '90s when like grunge started, Nirvana and Alice in Chains and all those bands started to come up. Everybody, all these guys were finally like, yeah, fuck, screw those guys, and Poison, and they completely turned their backs on all that, because there was guys who were like me, like you can see in that picture, guys like me who were getting pussy on a pretty regular basis, and then there were guys who were just like wondering why girls would be into guys like me.
So
And
you
then
never answered the
all
question
that
though.
changed.
Who was the main guy you saw on TV? You're like, I gotta get some pussy.
All right, so when
Was it Gene Simmons? Because he's an animal.
No. Okay, so there's the I want to get laid side of all this, and then there's like the musical side of this. When I was a little kid, when
Give
I was
the people
like,
what they want, the laid
I was
side.
like the laid side. Yeah. When I was about 8 to 10 years old, I was really into Kiss. And I think a lot of kids were, because this was like the mid 70s, like the 77 Love Gun tour and the Destroyer tour, and we were too young to ever go to those things, but we would like watch the HBO special with Kiss and stuff like that. My very young friends were all like, we were Kiss, right? I was Ace Frehley, and my brother was Gene Simmons, and our friend, everybody had their little, this is how we're going to play it, right? We're going to be in a band. So we were already like, when I was about 8, 10, 12 years old, we already wanted to be a band. And it was really about the performance and all that. But like, I think that when I got older, I don't know if that I necessarily had a single role model so much as I knew a lot of guys who were older than me who were already in bands and were already like in real life. Because remember, this is like Southern California in the mid 80s. And so by the time I'm 18 years old, I know guys who are like 21 who are already playing in the scene. And so those guys right there were sort of like in real life were my I'll say role models, but they were the guys who I looked up to, and I thought, you know what, that's kind of what I want to do. But musically, I was kind of all over the place with respect to like hard heavy metal. I was into like Iron Maiden. I was into Metallica. I remember when Metallica came out with Kill 'Em All, the very first album. Slayer was always a thing for me. But then I always knew that guys like in Poison, guys in like the glam rock scene were getting more ass than anyone. So the first band I ever played in was a glam band. So just so you guys know. And no, it wasn't put on the mascara kind of stuff. It was like
no Boy George.
No Boy George, but there was a lot of vinyl and a lot of leather and a lot of vinyl in that band.
That's good.
And
I like it.
I'll tell you that you want to know the defining moment. Okay, here's the moment is I'm coming out of that really bad whatever it was relationship with my first girlfriend that I moved to Santa Cruz for. I come back to LA and it's like game on. As soon as I got back, it was the best decision of my life. I'm like, the best thing I ever did was leave her and leave all that behind, because like literally the day I got back, I was getting laid. And so I'm getting into the scene. I finally got into a band. We're finally doing some original music. I'm finally
What was
playing
the band's name?
God. Well, I played in a band called Sour Mash for a while.
Okay.
I played in a band. God,
that's whiskey. That's Jack Daniel's Sour Mash.
Yes, yeah. That was actually probably the best band I ever played in was Sour Mash. That was when we were opening for like bands like Shark Island and some. I don't know if anybody would even remember some of these bands, but like Bang Tango.
What did you play?
Those guys were friends. I was playing bass at that time, and I'll tell you why. Because it was easier to get a spot playing bass than it was
easy to pick up. Right, bass is relatively easy.
Well, I'd already been playing guitar for a while, and I realized that there are so many good guitarists, because remember the barrier for entry to being in a really good band was everybody had to be god tier, like you had to be model quality good looking, you had to have musical talent, and you had to have a front guy who was like God's gift to women and just complete egoist and just, completely full of himself. That's why if you look at Steel Panther is perfect epitome of what was going on back then, because they got a guitar god, and then the drummer's solid, the bass player solid. Everyone is a character kind of thing. So you're not only are you good looking and talented, you also play sort of this character that people expect you to be. And so that was the formula back then that everybody was following. So finding that combination of guys there's a lot of dudes. I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a great movie called Decline and Fall of the Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years. Go watch that and you will know exactly what I was doing and what I was going through back then. And so I'll tell you that here's the defining moment though. I was playing in the first glam band that I was in, and the guy who was the drummer, this guy Greg, still a good friend of mine right now. I was playing bass, he was playing drums. I played bass because it was easier to get a bass spot than it was to be a guitar god. So I just wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be on stage, I wanted to be singing, I wanted to be doing stuff, I wanted to be making music, and if that's how I had to do it, then that was fine. So I started playing bass, and there was a point where I think we had played our second or our third gig, and it was I still have a video of the first gig I ever played. And I was
20.
I was 20. Yep, on VHS. And I converted it. One of these days I'll make it available. You guys will just shit your pants. But I was 22 years old. I think it was our third gig. We had just played this club called the Central. It's on the Hollywood Strip. There was we played the Whiskey. We played Gazar. Gazar's is not there anymore, but that was a great club to play at. That's where Van Halen and Rat got started. There's the Whiskey, which is still down there, the Roxy, the Troubadour, which was my favorite place to play, was the Troub. So we play all these clubs on the Strip, and I think we had just played it was either the Central or the Troubadour, but Greg was in a relationship, right, with this chick who was just for the time, this chick was a 10, dude. I mean, like 9.5 at least, and she was a swimsuit model. And she was just the most smoking hot piece. I couldn't believe there was chicks that were that hot back then. And so, because I'm 22, this is all new to me, and I'm just trying to like sort of do this flying by the seat of my pants, living in a single bedroom studio in North Hollywood. And she had a friend, and her friend was also a swimsuit model. She was easily the hottest girl I had ever had gotten any kind of interest from. And it was at that point when I was sort of she was never my girlfriend, but she was a fun time. She was one of my 40, put it that way. Mm-hmm. But we were like, she would meet us after the show, she would bring her friend, and her friend was really interested in me, and it was like that was the first time I got LA Hollywood sex, was with this chick. And I'm like, I can do this. I can actually get a chick that this fucking hot. Oh, I can't believe, and because you're still thinking in your adolescent social skill set, you're still thinking back,
and you're like 28 now, right?
Your benchmark. No, I was like 22 at that time.
Oh, okay.
I'm at 22 years old back then.
Okay.
And so 20. From the time I was about 21 till I was about 24, that's the time when I just took off. Mm-hmm. And so I had gone from being this kind of blue pill chumpish high school kid who would move to another city or another place to facilitate a relationship, to I don't give a rat's ass about any chicks, and I'm going to spin plates. And that's what I did, and it was natural to me, because I'm like, okay, I'm finally where I want to be. I'm finally in a band. It's starting to take off. And like the hottest women that I've ever gotten interest from are interested in me on a regular basis. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go with this. And so that changed my mind about men and women. It was no longer about, I'm going to go get a relationship. I'm going to bang as many chicks as I can, because I was like a kid in a candy store. I had the look, like you saw that pig. That was when I was 28. Imagine I have video of me at 22. I'll have to go dig up some shots from that video. But at 22, I'm like rail thin. I've got long blonde hair down almost to my butt, and I'm this character that women want to have sex with. I'm the guy that they see on MTV that they want to have sex with.
So why didn't you feel the typical monogamous guilt? Like, oh, I should just be with one girl and I should do my part. Why didn't you fit into the lie? Why didn't you fit into the system?
You mean as far as
Like
the
a lot of
scene
guys that I coach, like they feel
Mhm.
like guilty if they date more than one woman at a time, and this is a woman they
Mm.
meet off of Tinder.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I used to feel that way. I actually did for a long time. Like when
Mhm.
I think maybe it was just because of the way I was brought up, or like, I call it the village or whatever, but my upbringing was you got to be you got to be supportive, right? You got to support your girl. You got to be a good provider. You got to be her friend first. You got to do. And then I realized that like the chicks that wanted to have sex with me in Hollywood, they didn't want to be friends. they just wanted to get, they just wanted to get laid, right? They
So
wanted to
they
be
go
with the
tell their
character. They wanted to have
girlfriends.
sex with the character, right?
Yep.
I don't
You're
know if
good
you've ever.
gossip material when you're on stage too.
Oh man, I'll
Chick
tell you
crack.
that I've said this before. This is what my game consisted of when I was 20, 21, 22, 23 years old. I had like no money, by the way. I had zero. I had just enough money to pay for rent. That was about it. And my total liquid assets were my musical equipment, my amp, my bass, and a beat up Toyota 79 Toyota pickup truck that didn't even have a tailgate. It just had like a tailgate net. And women would knock on my door, I can remember I had two, well, actually two of them did this, but this one chick used to come to me, knock on my window because she knew that that's how I would be sleeping. She'd knock on my window to wake me up. She'd come in through the window. We'd have sex before she had to go to her job. And then I was going to go off to like whatever community college I was going at the time. And we would do that. And I think really now that in hindsight, I think she did that because she didn't want to be seen on the street, coming in through my door or something.
So you
But
went in through your
that's what
window?
that was, and my game,
Wait,
yeah,
wait. She went in through your window.
she would crawl through my window
Was it on
to
the second
come in.
floor or the first floor?
No, 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 it was on first floor. No, she didn't have to
Throw a ladder
climb. Yeah,
out.
no, probably would have, but yeah, God, that was funny. But my game consisted of this because I had no money. I would like women would buy me drinks, or if I had just enough money to buy one drink, I would nurse it all night long. That's why I never really got into alcohol back then. Um, because I had, first of all, I had to play and I had to be on top of my game. But then what I would do is I would have like whatever drink I was drinking, and I'd be at the bar. I literally got to the point where I could go and I could say, I want that chick tonight. I'm gonna get with that girl tonight. And I would go. I would start talking to her. She would see me. Obviously, I'm one of the guys that's going to be playing in the list of bands that are playing that night, because that's how it used to work back in the LA metal scene. Was you would get there and there'd be like probably 4 bands, and it would be from like, it would start at probably about like 9 o'clock and it would go to like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning sometime. And so everybody would go on and play an hour set. So you're there for at least 4 hours. And God forbid you're the last band or the first band. You want to be like the second or the third band. And so if you could swing that, it was great. And so what
Get
I would
in,
do,
show off, get the girl, get out.
get in, get out, right? And so my game was this: is I would meet the chick, I'd start talking to her, and then she would, we'd start flirting, she'd start playing around with me. And then what I would do is I'd have my drink, and I would strategically not drink all of it. And I would say, hey, my set's coming up, watch my drink. And I'll talk to you when I get back, kind of thing.
Bye, dog.
If she was still there at the bar with that drink after my set, it was on every single time. Every single time it was on. And so I would that was
slick.
kind of
That's
like my
game
back then.
That's really good.
Hey,
game.
watch my drink. I'll be back in my set's coming up.
It's a
And
compliance and submission test.
Yes, it is. Yes. And so if she was still there and the drink was still there when I got back, that I knew it was on. And so that was kind of my
guy
game.
in this chat now buying girls drinks and giving them like, watch this drink. I'm
you
gonna go to the
play
bathroom.
in a band. You actually have to play in a band, really. I don't think people realize just how much work went into all of that. But so that was my game for probably about 3 years, 4 years. And but getting back to what your question was, like what was the point? The point that I sort of realized that I had changed, that I'd gone from blue pill beta to like sort of lesser alpha, was when I got with the swimsuit model, and I realized at that point that I can get laid with the chicks that I've always dreamed of having sex with on MTV or centerfolds. And literally I have banged a centerfold, just from I'll say this. I'm not going to tell you what her name is, but she was
Pamela Anderson.
no, it wasn't Pamela Anderson. She was a center. She was a centerfold from the 1989 catalog of Playboys.
Okay,
And
we're
then
gonna have some autists out there
yeah,
dig it
you
up.
guys. Yeah, well, there's only 12, so it's of those 12. You guys can go try to figure out which one it
Oh
was.
Lord, guys, real quick before we get going, we're at that hour mark here. I just want to let you know that if you guys are enjoying this, Rollo, Tomassi, and myself on April 18th will be at the Las Vegas Rule Zero live event. We'll be doing a 1-day workshop. I only had 20 tickets. We all have 20 tickets to sell. My tickets are sold out. I no longer have tickets available. Rich is halfway sold out. Rollo is halfway sold out, and it's a limited amount of tickets. So if you want to join us and you want to come shake our hands, have lunch with us, enjoy this in real life, go to Rollo Tomassi's Patreon page, subscribe, become a member, and then you'll contact him
There's a
to.
link there.
There's a link there.
Yeah, you'll get the
Click
link.
on
If
the
you
link.
become a member, you'll have access to the post on
Mhm.
Patreon from all my members, and from there you can purchase a ticket. From that, I am. We haven't even. We announced this on Saturday. I'm
Yep.
already halfway sold out. So
Yep.
so get it quick. And at this price point, man, $500 is nothing.
Yep. We have some
Vegas. For Vegas, no, it's nothing.
And for you guys that are showing up, I have some really exciting news coming up that I'm going to be talking about in regards to Vegas. Well, let's just say there is an immersive event being planned with me and Troy Francis. We're going to give you the ultimate red pill makeover, and it's going to be a 5-day experience. I'll talk more about that later, but let's go back to hear more about Rollo Tomassi. Are you guys liking this, or should I just end the interview? Give me a 1 if you guys are liking this. Give me a 2 if you want me to end the interview. I've got an idea of what's gonna
happen. We're only up to my 20s now, man. We got to.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. So now you're in your 20s. You figured out the drink game strategy. You're having sex with the women of your dreams. We're broke. You have no money. You're not. These women are, these women are having validational sex with you too, not transactional. Because I don't know if you ever had transactional sex, but it's not fun. I mean, validational sex, they're like, you can put it anywhere. Like, they are into it. They are
enthusiastic.
It's passionate, man. It's passionate.
It's funny when I think about stuff like when I write or I talk about genuine desire and how important that is. It's because like I've experienced it from a lot of different women, and it's interesting because I know that like a lot of the guys that I counsel and a lot of guys who hit me up or ask me about things, a lot of guys get stuck in the idea that sex is only ever going to be transactional, or that's the only thing they've ever known. So when I say, hey, have you ever had a girl give you that look like her eyes dilate and she it's on, and you have a really good experience with this chick.
Oh yeah.
A lot of guys, a vast majority of guys never really experience that. And even with their wives, it's just sort of a chore for their wives to have sex with them. And I'm like, dude, there's a whole world out there. You just have to understand, a whole world of sex, or a whole world of, genuine desire, validational sex that you gotta experience, man. You really have to learn how to get to it.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's, like I said, there, like when a woman is into you, I'm going to get a little slightly vulgar here, but when a woman is into you, she will suck your dick like her life is on the line, and she will put everything into it. The sex, they're more vocal. They're more eager to please. And honestly, it's one of the best feelings on earth.
You want a band? Like everybody always wants band stories. So here's a band story. I was playing this one gig. I think it was in 90. I was in Sour Mash at the time. And I was playing a big, and people are going to go look it up now. It's not the one.
We're making Sour Mash t-shirts.
That band went defunct back in 1990. So just be cool. But I can remember playing at this big, it was a big event gig. It was like at a hall. It wasn't even at it wasn't even on the strip, I don't think. But people were coming out to see us and see the other bands that were playing. And I can remember at that point, we started getting groupies, and we started having like people who are following us because they were either friends or they were really into the band. And I can remember getting dragged into the women's bathroom at this gig and having, I hope it was one chick, but it was, I got dragged into the bathroom and got sexed up before a gig. And that's when I was kind of like, okay, I guess I know I finally arrived. Right. And
So
just to have that,
you're not going to start a Me Too campaign for yourself.
No, and I'm not gonna tell you how, like people say, well, how do I get that? Rollo, teach me the game so that women will drag me into the bathroom. I'm like, different time, different era, different generation. But that was a really, for me, that was a really great experience. And it was right then that I understood that it was possible to inspire genuine desire, genuine lust in women, and to enjoy that, and to actually have that as part of my experience.
That's red pilling as fuck to have that happen. That's
to have that happen.
Red pills you with the quickness.
Well, you probably, I don't know. You've read the game, right? You've probably read Mystery Method and all that stuff. And so in the game, like Neil Strauss sort of had this kind of epiphany too. Like he went from this bald kind of like really kind of schlubby kind of guy to being a player, and going from being the guy who had to beg for sex to being the guy who was begged for sex.
Yes.
And that is kind of, well, first of all, it's very liberating for guys, but it teaches you, I think it really teaches you the nature of the true nature of women.
My friend is like the equivalent to you, and he was a DJ. He was on a VH1 television show, very like rinky dink show. There was he was on 8 out of 10 episodes, right? There's this girl, he showed me her profile, and she's like this, she has all the feminist checkpoints. Like I am, pronouns, she, her, all the things, works at Starbucks, talks about how she wants to bring down the patriarchy. He matched with her on Tinder, and I kid you not, I saw her begging to meet him, and she got to the point where she's like, listen, I'll come over, I'll suck your dick, and I'll leave. This is verbatim a woman typing this. I'm reading this shit like, this dude's like a like E-list celebrity. And she's like, on Twitter, she's like, all men are trash, blah, 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 big game. And then behind the scenes, I see this, and she's literally telling him, she is reducing herself to a fucking sexual object, saying,
she's a groupie. Oh, she's a groupie. Like was it Royce wrote this once? He said, there are groupies for every male endeavor except for World of Warcraft. there are groupies for, and that kind of,
even MGTOW has groupies.
Even MGTOW, exactly. Yep. Even MGTOW has groupies. There's groupies for every male endeavor. If you're a plumber, there's probably groupies for, if you're like a really good plumber and you have your own business and you go to conventions and all this, there are groupies for you. Really. Do something well, stand out, be social proof. I'll tell you what's really interesting is where I didn't realize I was learning all of these lessons back then. Like now that I come look back with a red pill lens, when people ask me about this, I sort of recollect what I was going through in my 20s. All of the stuff that I was going through was teaching me what I know about women's nature now. Because I experienced it. I went through most of this stuff, and I don't think, like, there was no such thing as game back then. There was no books. Like the only, you could look in the back of a Hustler magazine, it would say, buy my book, How to Get Girls, kind of thing. That was probably the extent of what game was all about. So you had to, like, through the 80s and through the 90s, if you wanted to get laid, you had to learn it in real time. There was no community, there was no red pill, there was no like forums or anything like that. So you were either doing it or you're jerking off and you were frustrated. And I think that when guys, like, I really don't talk about this very much. I'm glad we're talking about it now, because what happens is it triggers something in guys who are still stuck, like beta guys who are still clinging to their blue pill, or like guys who get very moralistic. Like that, well, I would never do something like that, like that makes them better than you because they would never do something. It's like, no, you're just making your necessity a virtue. But at least I can speak to those things. I think that's what kind of makes my experience a little bit more unique, I guess, because I've been blue pill. I've been the guy who's been reduced to like almost omega status by a BPD girlfriend. I have lived the life of a guy who gets pulled into bathrooms and banged. I've lived the life of a guy who's been a father of a daughter who's now 21. I've been a successful, by all accounts, a successful husband and father for almost 24 years now. So I have a lot of experience to draw upon. And then, the nature of the business that I'm in right now puts me into the field a lot. So I can, I'm a student of human nature, and I'm in a unique position where I can do that.
So let's talk about the infamous BPD. So how did you go from Rollo Tomassi, almighty slayer of the bathrooms,
of the boon,
getting
slayer of the
taken in the bathrooms, literally getting raped by these women? How did you go from like up here, king
to the
of the
lowest
fucking
point?
And how low did you go? I'm gonna put you on a full screen here. I'm gonna go grab a tissue to blow my nose.
Sure,
But
sure,
I want
sure.
you to just run with that for a second. Tell us
Sure, yeah,
how
I
you
can do
came
that.
down.
Well, I was about I think I was 23, almost 24 years old, and again, I was playing in a band. I was still doing what I was doing, but I was also going to a community college at that time because I still, on the back of my head, I realized I needed to be doing something, to better myself or to at least have some sort of fallback plan when, if things didn't work out. So I'm going to a community college, and I meet this really very attractive, like thin, blonde, blue-eyed girl in the college bookstore. Right. I mean, that's where you're supposed to meet your one, right? That's where you meet quality women, right? In the bookstore and Barnes and Noble. That's where they're all in Bible study and Barnes and Noble, and they're all they're very serious. And she was about the same age as I was. And I was very attracted to her, and I started running game, like what I knew of game. I started, flirting with her. And
did you meet her there, or was she working there?
No, I met her there. She was buying books at the same time I was buying books.
You sly dog. You wouldn't leave her alone, huh?
No, and then so I started talking to her, and I had the look, and she liked the look. And
let me ask you the infamous question: How did you open?
How did I open? I don't know. Probably something with cocky funny. I think I don't remember exactly what I said. Yeah, actually I do. I think I said something like because where I was talking, where the books, as always, are very expensive. Textbooks were, and I was saying, I think I said something out loud, and I said I got to take out a new line of credit so I can afford these books, kind of thing. And so she chimed in. Like all I had to do was just I didn't even run game at her. I was just kind of talking, and she came into my conversation, and then from there it was like, hey, I like that chick. Then I started seeing her around the college I was going to, and then from there I said, hey, you want to go out? I actually took her on a real legitimate date. It wasn't a hookup at a club. It was me going to say, hey, I'll take you out to dinner or whatever. I wanted to do it right, man. And she was the product of a single parent house. She lived with her mom, still probably lives with her mom today. Was very like I said, borderline personality disorder. Like whenever I talk to Tate doesn't believe that there is such a thing as borderline personality disorder, or he does, but he doesn't think it's like as pronounced. I didn't realize that there even was a thing called BPD until I got and I decided I was going to get into psychology. I didn't even know there was something like that in the DSM. And so when I read that, I'm like, holy shit, that's what she was. Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where she was
DSM-1, right? Or the DSM-2 at that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give you the basics here. The basics are is that although I was living the life and I was spinning plates and I was having, I pretty much had my pick of women in the clubs. was 23, 24 years old, and I still had not killed the beta. I still had not killed off my blue pill ideals. And I knew that I wanted to get with a hot chick, but I'm like, okay, I want to get in a relationship. I want to have a girlfriend, and I want her to be like supportive. I want her to be like into what I'm doing. And like, remember how I just talked about this with Rich yesterday. Most guys will say this: I want a girl who loves me as much as I love her. Like that was me back then. Even though I was getting laid, even though I was having sex with a lot of women, I still had that blue pill hope and dream. And I had not killed it. And I really wish I had, from my first girlfriend. And I'd had other girlfriends, but none of them lasted more than like 6 months. But she was special. She was, she was good. She also made me wait for sex. And
how long?
So it wasn't probably a month, maybe 6 weeks, I think, which was like, I was a long time to wait for sex for me,
a century,
back then. And I could tell she had some hangups, and then we finally did have sex, and it was weird because the first time we had sex, she wasn't really all that into it. And then once we'd had it once, like the second time, she was just like crazy into it. She was like, it was like porn star sex. It was better sex than I was getting. And I had some pretty good sex with women back then, but she was just like very enthusiastic. She was very into it. And then sometimes she would just be kind of like a dead lay. And then sometimes she'd be like really, really into it. And it was almost like she was bipolar, but she was also insanely jealous. And like unhealthily jealous.
Other girls?
Well, because she knew I was playing in bands, and she knew that I had social proof. I had a lot of women who were interested in me at the time. And so
were you plating her at any point, or was she only?
I made a big tactical error in the beginning, which was I mentioned how many women I had been having sex with to her, because I thought that was going to make her want to have sex with me. Because look, here's my prowess, right? Me being like a still stupid blue pill, but also being red pill enough and cocky enough to say something like that. And you don't tell that to a BPD who is already prone to fits of jealousy. And so that was like something I was for 4 years, I was never able to live down. Well, you want to fuck all those girls. You had sex with all those girls. You had sex
4 years you were with this bitch?
Yeah. Well, 3.5, 4 years, somewhere around
Whoa.
there. And so that sort of colored a lot of our relationship, was insane fits of jealousy. Like, this was a chick that would fight with you in the restaurant, like deliberately. This is the chick that would, I couldn't walk down like the street, like an open air mall, and not like there'd be beautiful women walking around, and I didn't even have to look at them. I might not even knew they were there. She would see them. She'd go, I bet you want to fuck her. I bet you would have fucked her, wouldn't you? That kind of stuff.
How old were you when you got involved with her?
24.
Jeez, 24? You like wasted, not wasted, but that was like
wasted my prime years. Yes, like trying to find the magic key, trying to find out how I was going to make that work. What do I got to do to make this bitch happy? And then I realized that when I finally cut myself away from all of that, like what happens with BPD women is they will, especially if you're like a blue pill guy, what BPD women will do is they will convince that guy that her problems are his problems, or he is the source of her problems. And what happens is when you're blue pill, you believe that. You go, oh, I guess I am a horrible person. If I could just be a better person, she would love me. She would be better. She, all of this insanity would stop. Or, well, she's just crazy and young. When she gets a little older and more mature, she'll come around. Yeah. No, she'll just be older and more mature crazier. And more crazier. Yeah. That's what we're. But she was crazy in bed and crazy out of bed.
I dated a BPD girl who was a cutter, and I found out later into the relationship. But so I used to work at Olive Garden when I was putting myself through college, and I sympathize with servers. I'm really nice to servers in a restaurant because I've been on that side, and I see what they do to people who are mean to them. Your food is not safe. You better be nice to your fucking server. And we were at this Korean restaurant in Osaka, and I was dating her. And I just, she brought me some food. I said arigato at the beginning, which is thank you in Japanese. And then when she was done setting everything up, she left and said, oh, thank you, arigato again. And then, the BPD, she looked at me, she's like, you don't have to say thank you twice to her. You know that, right? And I was like, do you really think right now I'm going to fucking pick up this girl and go and take her and go fuck her in the kitchen or something? I was like, I'm going to date here with you. Are you this dumb? And then what did that escalate to? A fucking fight in the restaurant. And I was just like, I was 29 at the time. So it's still like, I wasted 1 year of my life with my BPD, but still, it was a fucking year down the drain.
Yeah. I have guys who will send me occasionally, guys will send me videos like on Twitter or whatever of like these guys on the street, and the woman is like, she's like this to him, and he's just like, he'll be sitting on a car or a tailgate or something, and she'll be like this, and she look at, like trying to like scold him, like, I mean, physically scold him. And then if you're blue pill, you will think that you're a bad person, and she wouldn't be doing that to you if you were a better person. So how do you become a better person? Well, you give up everything. You give up your dreams, you give up your hobbies, you give up your passions, you give up everything, but anything that might set her off, anything that would solve her problems, because you are the source of her problems. And if you could only just be a better person, if you could only just be more perfected, if you just give up everything and focus on the things that she thinks are important, or that you think she thinks are important. What's interesting is, like, I can remember times where this pissed me off one time. She was still into bands and stuff like that, or she still liked a lot of the stuff that I was into, but I had systematically sort of like given up myself and my identity, because I thought that that's what she wanted me to be. And then there was at one point, I think we were like maybe 2 or 3 years in, and she said, like, Motley Crue is looking for a guitar player, or some band she was talking. They're looking for a guitar player. Do you still remember how to play guitar? I was fucking furious, because I had given up the band scene because I thought that that's what she wanted. I thought that was gonna be good. That was gonna make us good. And I remember,
how far into the relationship did you give it up?
Oh, did I give up? About 3.5 years in? I mean, really, I started seeing I actually broke up with her
No.
once,
Give
and
up
then
the
got back
band stuff. How long?
I was, after we started our relationship, I think I gave up the band thing probably about a year later.
Wow.
I stopped playing regularly. I still wanted to get into it and everything, but then I thought, well, I gotta get serious. I gotta do all this stuff, because that's gonna, I gotta plan for the future. And so pretty much what I did is I gave up my ambitions, because I thought that the ambitions that I had were wrong. Because you can't be a musician forever, you can't be this forever, you can't do that forever. And so I thought I started changing my life to accommodate what I thought was going to solve her problems. And that's something that guys should never do. I think like the when I finally got out of that, and I started dating, and I started spinning plates and dating non-exclusively, and this was like right between that time and meeting my wife, I made a decision for myself right then and there. I said, I have fucking squandered too much of my time, like my prime years of my 20s. Like, I can't get those back. And I fucked around for 4 years, like not focusing on, certainly not making myself my mental point of origin. My point of origin was whatever was going to make her happy that day. And it got to the point, like when I was about a year and a half in, that I was miserable. But you don't
chasing dragons at that point.
But you don't realize you're miserable. You're miserable, but it's become so normal for you that you think, okay, well, maybe today I'll figure it out. Oh, I hope I don't set her off today. I can remember this, dude. I can remember being on the phone with her and talking, like we always had to be in constant communication, right? And this is before cell phones. So I would be on the phone, and I can remember falling asleep on the phone because I didn't want to hang up with her, because I didn't know if she was going to, it was going to set her off if I hung up. And and I would wake up and the phone would be, in my hand, and I would be like, what the hell is this? And I realized that I had fallen asleep because I was on the phone with her trying to talk to her the whole time.
You're a nice guy, man.
It was insane, absolutely insane. Well, like I look back at it now, from who I am today, and it you wouldn't even recognize me. I wasn't even the same person anymore. I wasn't the same person that I was just like 3 years prior or 2 years prior to that, when I was just happy-go-lucky, fun guy, fun bass player in a band, and having fun with chicks. And what's interesting is there's chicks, like when you get into that situation, like nobody wants to hang with you. Nobody, like after a while, like all your old friends, hey man, let's get together, let's go have a drink, blah blah blah. You don't want to do it. You're like, no, man, sorry, I can't. You'll make up excuses because you know that if you go do that, because what BPDs do is they isolate you. Like all this shit that's going on with Prince Harry and Meghan, dude. I know exact. People say, well, Rollo, you're like Nostradamus. You can see the future. No, I went through that. I see the patterns, and I know exactly what he's going through, and I know what's going to happen next. And if he doesn't take some sort of action, or if he doesn't fucking find his balls, he's going to kill himself. That's why I said Prince Harry will probably kill himself, because at some point I was just like, man, this is miserable. I don't know what to do. Either I'm going to live for myself or I'm going to kill myself with this chick. And most guys who are the host, because that's what BPDs are, they're parasites. They kill themselves, particularly now, because it's easier than ever before to isolate guys. And so that's the first thing a BPD will do, is they'll isolate you from friends, isolate you from family. And that's exactly what she did. And it was only us. If I wanted to talk to my brother, she didn't like my brother, because my brother would say, get the fuck away from her. And he was right.
How many people? Because I had a very super, super hot Ukrainian girl that was friends with in Osaka. And she came to me, she was like, why are you with that girl? You're so handsome. You're so smart. She was like, what are you doing? And I was just like, oh, this girl's just crazy and jealous. Like you're fucked up in the head when you're, this is like some kind of like demonic spell or something.
Turning down sex, turning down genuine sex. Like there was 2 times
I wasn't that good of a boyfriend.
Yeah, me too. I did actually cheat on her once.
Good for you.
But opportunities came up. I ended up moving to Northern California later, during that relationship, and I tried to do the long distance thing with her, and that's when she was the one who actually cheated on me, and she was trying to play. What was interesting is at the end of that relationship, I think she wanted to break up with me, but she didn't want to be the bad guy. She didn't want to be the one who was initiating the breakup, when in fact she was already banging other guys at the college she was at.
Guys, plural.
Guys. And I can remember going to visit her. I would drive down from Northern California to Southern California. I would go and I would visit her, and she would have like lingerie hanging off the back of her bathroom door. And I'm like, at me being stupid, I'm like, oh, she's gonna wear it for me. She never wore it for me for the whole weekend. I'm like, why is that there? Because she was leaving these signs. She wanted to get caught. She wanted me to find out that she was cheating. She even left her journal open to like, I fucked this guy, like trying to leave all these little hints for me.
She did. She left saying that.
Oh yeah. She would have. How like did you ever see that the Marriage Story with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson? Did you see that? I can't
bring myself to watch that toxic shit and make me upset.
There's that one episode, or that one scene where Adam Driver like punches the wall like that. Yeah. Pat Campbell talked about that, and he was like, "What kind of guy punches the wall?" And I'm like, I did exactly that during that time, during the time that I was finally breaking up with her. I was finally giving up on her. And I've told this story before. There was a time where we had this real knockdown, drag out fight, and I was in her dorm, and she stormed off to her bedroom, and I was looking at the door to her bedroom, and I was looking at the door that was the exit, that was the front door of the dorm that I could. And I'm like, I was sitting there on the couch, and I was just like, I was just never been so stressed out in my life. And I'm looking at the door, and I can go in there and try to be a good boyfriend and try to make this thing work, or I can leave. And I literally had 2 doors in front of me. you can go back to this bullshit or you can leave. And I left. And that was that was like really the first act of me, sort of reclaiming my identity at that
They
point.
make you do the craziest shit. So I used to, when my BPD,
Mm-hmm.
we lived in these things in Japan called guest houses, right? So it's basically
Mm-hmm.
like a communal household, but like it's like you have like a mini apartment in a giant building, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I lived on the 6th floor and she lived on the 7th floor, and she had this habit of making fights with me and then locking me out of her apartment and then like riling me up and locking me out. And I remember one time because she knew, because it would drive me crazy, and I would like try to like win the fight and be like, don't, what the hell's wrong with you, don't do that. And I remember I got so crazy to the point, listen to this, dude. So I
Mm-hmm.
lived on the 6th floor, she lived on the 7th floor. I went out on my balcony and I jumped and I hung onto her
uh,
balcony and I
uh,
pulled myself up over, and I jumped over the balcony and I opened the sliding glass door. And I was like, "You fucking bitch. What the fuck are you doing locking me out?" And she was like, "Holy shit." Like, she was not
that's,
expecting me to
that's crazy.
Spider-Man that thing.
Uh,
And I look back on that and I could have fucking fallen to my death.
mm-hmm.
But like you're like, when you're in that toxic relationship, you don't think it. And then what
Mm-hmm.
happens after? As soon as I came in there, spiked the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then you have that crazy toxic
Oh yeah.
sex.
As soon as you, guys always ask me like, how do I know stuff like this? And it's like, when I tell guys this, I say, look, if you're in a marriage, the hottest sex you're ever going to have is not going to be date night. It's not going to be, oh, I rent the baby's with my mom and we're going to go to this hotel and I'm going to sprinkle rose petals all over the freaking bedroom and we're going to get the jacuzzi suite and there's going to be wine and chocolate covered strawberries and all that contrived shit for a romantic night. The best sex is not going to be that night. I'll guarantee you it won't be,
No.
because that's obligation is what that's obligation sex is what that is. Does a genuine desire sex is when you are just like on the brink of like saying, fuck it, I'm out. I'm never going to see you again. Or maybe you even do that. You come back and she fucks you from here to Tuesday, because that is the urgency. That is what, I almost lost you. That's dread sex right there.
Yeah.
And I hate that it's like that. I mean, it would be nice if we would just, wouldn't it be great if we could just be nice and have these nice romantic things and I could just do nice things for you and you would really, and women would really respond to that? Yeah, that'd be great. But that's not how things work. That's not how it works.
I think the good thing about when you date these ultra psychos
Mm-hmm.
is they usually sharpen your skills so quickly that they lead you to a really, really good woman. That's how I met
Mm-hmm.
my current main girl now, is
Yeah.
I met her after this bitch. And
Mm-hmm.
my current girl now is like, still lives with her parents. She was raised in the Japanese countryside. Dad has worked the same job his whole entire life. Mom's been a homemaker, very
Mm-hmm.
sheltered, very traditional household, very, they're good people. You know what I mean? Good old
Mm-hmm.
people. And she's literally like the best girlfriend I ever had. Like, she makes me, like, I showed the guys the other day, I have albums that she makes me she prints photos and makes albums of our lives
Mm-hmm.
together. Everywhere I'm in the house, she's always leaving me love notes. She puts them in my wallet. She puts them in my refrigerator. She puts them in my laundry powder, so I find them when I'm doing stuff. And she does that to this day. Fucking amazing girl. So after you dumped her, did she
Mm-hmm.
try to get you back? Did she like viciously try to get you back, or she was done with
No, not at that point, because I was living in Northern California. She was in Southern California at that point. And I am 27 at this time.
you? Mm-hmm.
And, it was my mom was going through some medical issues at that time. And so I had to sort of go up there and take care of my mom it was in Lake Tahoe. So I was in Lake Tahoe for a while. And, so I was there, she was down there, and I know she was already banging some other dude. So it was really easy for us to sort of split up at that point. I tried to do the long distance thing. Man, let me tell you something. When you are doing long distance, especially if it's a BPD, but like in long distance just in general, I wrote two posts about LDRs, long distance relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and those came from this experience. And the experience is that like LDRs are like having an invisible friend. And then so you're like going to social events, or you're going and doing things, and you're like, well, I got a cool call my girlfriend, hi girl, it's like, you got your invisible friend right here, and she's the one who's watching over you, or you don't want to cheat on your invisible friend. And that's really what LDRs end up becoming. So what happens as a result of that is you pass up opportunities. And that's what I was doing for I think the last like 6 months of my quote unquote relationship with the BPD, while I was doing the long distance thing. I had chicks that really wanted to get with me, and I passed up opportunities to get laid and to actually do other things too, not just get laid, but like also opportunities for jobs and things like that, because I thought I was still going to be able to make it work out. But you have this idea that you have a girlfriend or boyfriend in the back of your head, and you're like, I don't want to cheat on my invisible friend. And that's why I say LDRs do not meet the definition of what a relationship is. A relationship is, interacting, talking to each other. If not every day, then like every other day. You have this constant. I have a relationship with my wife. I have a relationship with my daughter. I have a relationship with some of my friends. Like that kind of stuff. That's a relationship. An LDR does not meet the definition of a relationship, and 90% of them end up the one person, or if not both people, cheat, and that ends up destroying the relationship. But in the meantime, you are bypassing and giving up on opportunities. Like I look back, and that if I have any regrets about that, I mean, I had a lot of regrets about that time of my life, but if I have any regrets, it was I missed out on all of the opportunities that I could have maybe even benefited my life more had I not had a girlfriend, had I not been wrapped up in all that.
So was the next woman you got with after that, did you go straight to Miss Tomassi, or how did that go? Did you have fun for a little bit longer?
So I had to sort of, I don't want to call it monk mode, but I guess I sort of had to go monk mode for a little while.
You have to heal after that.
Yeah.
As like wimpy as that sounds, you do need to heal from the trauma.
I'm not gonna lie, I was still interested in getting with other women when I was dealing. I think probably something in my subconscious realized that I was never gonna make the shit work out with the BPD girl. And so I was still kind of trying to, I don't know, I guess formulate sort of, relationships, or, dating. Like, okay, once I get out of this, I'm going to go out with this chick. I'm going to do that. And so I'm still, trying to, I guess, sort of hedge my bets a little bit, relationship wise. But like at that point, once it was all over and it was a really bad breakup, I was like, okay, I about a week afterwards, once I got all the emotional shit was done, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with myself? I have an associate's degree from this college. I have done nothing for my 20s that I have to show for anything, and I have pretty much squandered some prime years of my life because I had this mentality.
You had this thought at
Never
27?
again. At 27, I
That's
remember. I
pretty
can remember.
profound, man.
I was sitting on.
I have some guys that I coach that are 27-year-old fucking losers that still think that
I
everything's A-okay
was sitting in the pull-out couch bed at my mom's place,
in
and I
Tahoe.
was like, in Tahoe, and I'm like, I have got to do something new. I got to live a different way. I got to start thinking. If I'm gonna, I never want to go back to that. I never want to do that. And then it struck me that all the times that I had been single, and all the times that I didn't care about women, was when women suddenly wanted to get with me. Right. I moved to Santa Cruz to be with the first girlfriend. I invested myself into that. I invested my identity in that. I got fucked. It broke up. It fell apart. What happened? I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to go and do my own thing. Then all through my 20s, or for at least half of my 20s, I'm getting laid like tile. I'm doing what I want to do because I made myself my own mental point of origin. Then I got wrapped up in if I had a red pill moment, I think it was probably right after that. Like, when did you get red pilled, Rollo? It was probably right there. And that's when I didn't call it mental point of origin then, but that's when I sort of formulated the idea for mental point of origin, is that I need to be the person that comes up first in my thinking when I'm faced with the decision. And I was faced with the decision right there.
That's what I was going to ask you. Was that thing like the, because one of the things that really stings the most, I say personally as a man, is when you realize you wasted some time, that really
Mhm.
pisses me off. And
Mhm.
is that when you're
Wasted
like,
potential.
is that when you're like, fuck this, like I'm going full mental point of origin?
Yeah, well, that was when I came up with the idea. So I realized that the best I'd ever been was when I was only thinking about myself, and I that was hard to do because we're brought up to think about others first, right? Especially if you're brought up in a religious, if you're brought up as a Christian. And I'm not going to say I was brought up as some like really great Christian. My father was very much an atheist and a Unitarian kind of guy, and my mom was evangelical Christian and is now a confirmed Catholic. So let that sink in for a little bit. But I was taught, think about others before you think about yourself. I was taught to the exact opposite of what I call enlightened self-interest, which is I have to take care of myself before I can take care of anybody. And so
Yep.
it was at that point that I said, I have wasted a lot of time and I've got a lot of catching up to do. I'm 27 years old. I need to get back into college. I need to do something with myself. These are my talents. I need to focus in on my strengths, which are my creative side. And that's when I started getting into graphic design. That's when I started doing, this is like back in like 93, 94. And I was working as a designer at the time. That was my job. I was a graphic designer. And this is early 80 or early 90s. So 93, 94. So I started getting into that. I taught myself all the applications because there was no college. I actually ended up teaching graphic design later on because of that, because I was so focused on that. I had one goal and that was it. And
Conk has a pretty good comment here. He says, like, the
mhm,
tradcon modern churchianity is the slave
slave
morality. Be the
morality. Mhm,
strongest and most efficient slave at the plantation. Agency is for chumps. And that, I grew up, I was pretty deep in the Pentecostal church my entire
mhm,
up until I was like, I started once I enrolled in the science program at universities when I kind of started doubting everything.
mhm,
And but until then, it's crazy. Like it's almost kind of sick how the church is like, give us your money, you're obligated to pay tithes, you must
mhm,
give us your time, you must donate your time, you must be a good faithful servant to like build up this church, which
mhm,
for lack of a better words is just an organization that's a business.
mhm.
And they're literally getting slave labor. And that was kind of
Yeah.
I kind of had a similar regret to you in my 20s, because the majority of my 20s, I didn't, I just spent partying, chasing women, doing drugs, clubbing all the time. I just lived to fuck.
Mhm,
And that was it. And then I moved to Tokyo when I was 26. When I was 27, I had a little bit more of an idea of money. 28, I moved to Hawaii for this other girl, and I
mhm,
was, um, I was driving taxi in Hawaii, but this was pre Uber, and that was the first time in my life. I was 28. I was making $10,000 a month cash, tax
mhm,
free, driving cab in Waikiki and Honolulu. So that right there made me realize, oh my god, I could be making all this money. Here I am, 28, and I'm just getting a taste of this, and looking back on
mhm,
the wasted time is just like, oh,
mhm.
it's as cliche as it says, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
I have a really like, as you know, my fourth book is about the red pill and religion. It's about
Yes.
the reason I took it upon myself to write this is because I've always had a really good relationship with the blogger Dalrock, who's just basically decided he's not going to blog anymore, which I think is a great shame. But it's coming at a time where I'm about to publish my fourth book about the red pill and religion, and my experience with religion is that, like I said, my father was very much an atheist. He was a secular humanist. I wouldn't say he was like Richard Dawkins level or Sam Harris level of atheist, but my dad was a kind of guy who liked to debate. And so I had that as one influence. And then I also had my mother. My mother was the one that kind of planted the seed in me, which was Christianity, go to church. These are beliefs. These are, my mom is responsible really for I think the faith that I do have right now. But then my dad was also the pragmatic side. So I still am very much a skeptic. I question things. Obviously, I mean, most of my books are connecting dots.
Yeah.
Now they're not like overtly religious in any of the books I've written thus far, but in the next book I'll probably go in a little bit deeper about like this stuff. But that's where I came from. I took some comparative religion courses in college. I really liked those things. I went to a Unitarian church when I was in my teens because my father's second wife was a Unitarian. And my dad, I can remember one time my brother and I we were sleeping on a Sunday, and my dad knocks on our door and he's like, "Get up." And we're like, "What the fuck is going on?" He's like, "We're going to church." Me and my brother are like, "Who is this guy?" And but we were going
what a gangster dad.
Yeah, we were going to the Unitarian church because the new chick that he was banging wanted him to come to the Unitarian church. And I don't know if you know anything about Unitarianism, but like it's like sort of like all is one. It's called it's really kind of like I learned this new word from Dr. Everett Piper. It's called syncretism. It is sort of like everything is one, all is one, and it doesn't matter. There are many paths to God, and you know, it doesn't matter which one you choose as long as you get there, kind of thing. And that's really kind of where Unitarianism was. And I really took off in the youth group that was there at that time, because again, there was girls there, and they weren't really super religious, but you were always there because your folks were there. And so I started hanging. Actually, the first girlfriend I had, the first girl I ever had sex with, was from that Unitarian youth group. And that ought to tell you something about the morality, I guess, of that particular religion. But they're very liberal, very very feminist, and like I would never be a Unitarian in my adult life, but in my youth, in my teen years, it was great, man. It was like it seemed like that was a way that I could get laid, and it was. I finally did when I was 17. So that was that. But my real faith, I guess, came from my mom. And my mom is a ditz. Okay. She is a lovable ditz. I love her to death. She's in an assisted living place right now. I go when I see her at least probably twice a month to 3 times a month. I'm trying to get her moved closer a little bit here too. I love my mom to death. I love her so much, but I know who my mom is. And so she used to be evangelical Christian for a very long time. And that's where you want to know where I get my experience or how I know so much about that subculture, the Unitarian, well, not Unitarian, but the evangelical subculture, Pentecostal stuff. You know, all what we would call, what's interesting to me is I can remember back in the 80s, it was all like we used to call it turn or burn Christianity, and it was that was the evangelical church. And it was sort of like we didn't know it was this at the time, but it was sort of the Jimmy Swaggart, you know, that kind of stuff. And
good Lord.
And so
yeah.
And so I remember when I was in my rock star 20s, and I would go visit my mom, and she would want to drag me to church. And these guys would look at me like, it was funny because like the chicks would want to get with me, and all the guys who were there would like try to say, "You're going to go to hell if you listen to Ozzy Osbourne," you know. And I was just, I didn't care at that time.
For your hair?
Again, remember at that point in my life, I was like, I'm the most important person in my life right now. And guess what? The chicks that you think are good girls, they're giving me their numbers and want to hook up with me after church.
And I've been alive for 34 years now. And anytime I have shifted my personality or my comfort or my belief system for anybody other than myself, it has never played out well. So I just like those guys trying to shame you into, I mean, it you know, and you become callous to it really. And you become stronger and more set in your ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As far as my belief set right now, I identify as a Christ follower. I think that is, what we call Christianity right now, like you said, has become perverted. It's become something like Christian churches are franchises right now. And I mean that in the most literal sense. I mean, they are commercial franchises. And so like guys will say, well, you know, it's a slave mentality, or it's a slave's religion. Like Conk will say, I know Conk came out of something like that too. And I understand why that is. if I'm going to in any way try to defend Christianity, I would say this is you cannot judge the merits of a religion based on the people who are adherents of that religion. You have to look at what are the core concepts. What is that religion? What are their core beliefs? What is it really about? Because people are like the people are always like, we're going to turn it into a business. I say this in the fourth book is right now we have turned, especially Christianity, but most mainstream religions have been feminized. They've been assimilated by the feminine imperative. And yes, even Islam has been assimilated by the feminine imperative.
Yep.
And so, but why is that? Well, because those religions have turned into commercial enterprises. Who is the primary consumer in the United States or in Western cultures? Women. So women go to church. They're the ones who are writing the tithe checks. They want to say, well, it's a patriarchal religion and it's men who are in charge, but they're not. They're just the figureheads. Those are just the people who get up there and deliver the sermon. It's the women who are the power behind the throne in most religions right now, unless it's a super orthodox religion, and most of those orthodox religions are dying out. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about stuff like that, I have to I look at religion from a very mechanical, pragmatic perspective, but I also have to look at it like what motivated this religion in its infancy, like what made this so compelling for people that they wanted to devote their lives to these ideals. That's one part, and then there's the other part where it's been corrupted by human interests, by humanity. And so, like when I talk about, I think I've told you guys this, certainly on Rule Zero, when I say, you guys got to go read this book called Alpha God by Dr. Hector Garcia. It will, if you are a dyed-in-the-wool fundamentalist Christian, it will really challenge your beliefs, because it's the Abrahamic religions are really kind of rooted in patriarchy, and the God of Abraham is an alpha male. It's an alpha male primate, and the interests and the things that are important to God, the God of Abraham, are what would be important to an alpha male primate. And that is the sort of archetype, or the theme, the thematic version of what that religion is really all about. That is a religion by men for men.
Right.
I think what's happening right now is we are shifting to a religion that is by women for women. And we're converting over the old guard, the old order way of thinking, into a new order way. And that new order is all about what is in the best interest of the feminine imperative. How can we convert and assimilate the old religions and turn it into this new religion that is by women for women? And I really think that if Dr. Hector Garcia is very much a feminist and very much anti-masculine, but if you read this, you will understand how the Abrahamic religions really sort of why what is important to those religions is important, because it has evolutionary roots. And this is something that I don't think a lot of Christians really want to confront themselves with, because when I was reading it, it challenged my beliefs about religion. And so my response to this is like, how else can you understand God except through the human experience? He starts the book with a quote, and I can't remember who it was by, but it was, if horses had thumbs and they had intelligence and they were just as smart as a human being, all of horses' gods would look like horses. They would have horses' interests. They would have horses, their gods and their morals and everything else will revolve around whatever the experience of that horse is. And it's the same thing for human beings. I talked about this with Elliot Hulse at that last convention that I was at. And that was really kind of a sad thing, because I really enjoyed that workshop that I did with him, because that was one of the questions I asked is our religious experience, is that colored by what we know about life on planet Earth? Like we this is our human bodies. I'm a man, she's a woman. We have to deal with gravity. We have oxygen. We have like all of these things, like these physical aspects that make up who we are.
Kind of limit our thinking to an extent.
Exactly. It keeps us right here instead of like trying to think in bigger terms. And I think religion keeps you here.
Yeah.
It doesn't
too
make you start
archaic.
thinking about the bigger picture. And I talk, if you guys want to know more about this, I talk about it in my fourth book. So
The fourth book is coming up in, what is it,
Mhm.
quarter 2? Right,
Yeah,
post event.
I've pushed it back, but I'm going to try to have it out by the time we go do our thing in Vegas. So
Okay, so April.
April.
Awesome. So let's talk about. So I want to kind of fast forward a little bit.
Sure.
So after she and you broke up, she was clearly a psycho. I want to ask you two things, and the first one is going to be. This one's going to be. This one's going to be kind of a tangent, but you're a man who's been alive for a long time now. You have seen, and I remember one of the most pinnacle moments I had was when we didn't really know each other yet. I was just kind of like a DM in your I was just sliding in your DMs, but I said, Rollo, did you
You said,
ever
Rollo, buy crypto.
and you did.
Huh?
No, but the thing I'm trying to say is, like, you have witnessed the decline of masculinity and femininity in America, and I think you attributed that decline to something that people have not connected the dots, and that is bad parenting. You've seen guys. I mean, look, in the 80s, I could talk about this all the time. Rick Torres and all the OGs in here, they know. In the 80s, if Bob and Steve, they're in the water cooler room, they didn't like each other. Hey, Bob, fuck you. Hey, Steve, fuck you. Maybe they would fight right there, or they would go fight in the parking lot. A couple people would watch. Bob and Steve would, shake hands, grab a beer after work, and that was it. Nowadays, like, everybody's like, oh, do you need a safe space? Are you triggered? Did he misgender you? Did he mispronoun you? Like, what has changed, and why do you think it's changed so?
Feminization of Western culture is what's really changed, and the way that we raise our boys and our girls. We have since the sexual revolution, since I usually peg it at about 1965, the end of the nuclear family era. Right around that point is when Western society collectively decided that we are going to prioritize the gynocracy, or the gynocentrist social order. We didn't call it that. It was just, and I don't think, like, people will say, well, it was this fiendish plot by the evil, Jews, right? I was like, no, it was a result. It was a result. It was the result of first of all, an innovation, and that innovation was hormonal birth control.
Yeah.
And that hormonal birth control was unilaterally controlled by females. And once women said, hey, you can have sex with me and you don't have to worry about ever getting pregnant. All that old social contract that was based around the potential that if a man and a woman have sex, that she could potentially get pregnant unless the guy wore a condom, whatever. All that's out the window right now. And ladies, here, you are in control of your hypergamy. Please police yourselves. You're in control of your hypergamy. You're in control of your birth control. And it was no shock that right after that, we had a free love movement. And I think people think of, like, the hippies and the boomer generation as like the free love generation. There was actually several free love movements prior to this one. They were some of them happened in France and other. Like, if you go and you look on the Wikipedia page for free love, the one, like, the Woodstock and the boomers in 1968 and all that stuff, that was one of many free love movements. So if you want to educate yourself, I had to do this myself. But since that point, so up through the 70s, what did we do? We made abortion on demand. We changed the divorce laws.
No fault divorce,
no
right?
fault divorce. The Duluth model of feminism.
Right.
All of these social changes. Like right now, what is it? More black babies are aborted than are born right now. 42%, 43% of babies born in the United States today are born out of wedlock. We have this is a Dalrock quote. Dalrock says that we have shifted from a marriage-based model of raising children to a child support-based model of raising children, all in the wake of hormonal birth control and the sexual revolution. We are now in the fourth generation since the sexual revolution, and look where we're at. Look at what's important in our gender politics right now. So yeah, so you were saying before where, you know, guys might get together in the job and they might fight each other and they shake hands and have a beer kind of thing. I don't know if are you familiar with my friend Josh Fluke? Josh Fluke has been doing this. He's a podcaster, and he's been doing this series on the American workplace and how it's become like a kindergarten or preschool room. So like a benefit for working at some of these companies is they have a ball pit there, right?
You're
Or they
joking
have
me.
or they have a ping pong table, or they have like ice cream socials on Fridays, and it's like all of these perks that are supposed to make your otherwise meaningless, you know, monotonous job more enjoyable. Well, how do we ever get to that? Why is it that the American workplace looks more like a kindergarten classroom than an actual workplace? Well, the reason for that is because we have put women into the American workplace. So when women get in there, they say, well, you know, you guys have been running this business for a long time. We need preschool here. We need childcare. We need to enjoy our experience. So what happens is systematically, progressively, women will come into what used to be a male space, which is the male space of the American workplace. They come in and they assimilate it and they convert it to what works for them. So the priority is not about profit. It is about the experience of working there. And when you put women into that corporate environment, and they what they do is they come in and it ceases to be about a dominance hierarchy. It ceases to be a male space. So the old, like back in the 60s and into the early 70s, companies were built by men. There was mostly men working. Women were not in the workforce. And so later on, after the sexual revolution, women started becoming more and more embedded into the workforce. And so you have these old school companies, like Gillette's a really good example of this. Gillette's been around for a long time. It was a male, like Procter and Gamble, and Gillette was certainly a male space or male dominated company. Women come in there and they do, they change things up and they say, you know what, we need to make men better men, and we need to get pink hats on them and change them into what we want them to be. And so what happens is those male spaces were idealistically, ostensibly, they're infiltrated, but they used to be about a meritocracy. So because men tend to be more dominant, it's hierarchical based, right? We're about merit. So if Jim does a better job than Joe, then he's going to get more money than Joe, right? That's how we work it. Women come in there and they want to make it a collective, right? They want to come in and they want to say, well, now that more women are here in this space,
we need to make it more inclusive.
We need to make it more inclusive. We need childcare. We need maternity leave. We need all of these things. And some of this might be great ideas.
But the reality is they're leeching. They're just they're doing what they do. Like, look, at the end of the day, are you going to hire a guy who is going to be healthy and work and no hormonal fluctuations every month and has zero chance of getting pregnant and being out for 9 months and then losing progress in the field? Because you worked in an industry where you have to keep on the times. And if you take a 9-month gap, from social media, you take a 9-month gap from technology, dude, like that, the world has blown past you. And then you're becoming a liability. And they don't, and when you say that, then they're like, oh, well, you're just a sexist, selfish male. I'm like, listen, this company didn't get built to the point where it is now for people not working hard. This company was built by hard work. Anything was built by hard work. And typically women like to come in after everything's cush, everything's all set up, and now they can be like, oh, it's all, kind of like equivalent to what Richard Cooper says. It's like they just hang out at the finish line and they choose the winner.
They don't really want to be there. That's the thing. Is like for as much as we want to convince women that they need to be strong, independent women, and they want to go in and be part of the American workforce and get, like Aaron Clarey wrote this really great essay about the American corporate culture and how he was writing about another article about how women are going to dominate American work culture. And Aaron says, let them have it. They deserve it. Give it to them, because you know what? That American work culture is being left behind. And it's being left behind because it's been feminized, because women have come in there and they've come into what was previously a male space. They changed things up, and it's not about the actual company. It's not about making money. It's not about, profit margins. It's not about any of that kind of stuff. It's about making their experience at work more comfortable for them because they don't really want to be there. They don't a ball pit. Oh, that's great. We have a ball pit. Oh, we have ice cream socials. Oh, we got childcare. We got all this great stuff. But all those are there for is to make women, or make the work, what is otherwise slavery, working in this sort of, cube farm, make that more palatable to the female experience. So, well, I got to be here. Society says I had to be here. Feminism said I'm a success because I'm in the corporate work culture now, but it really sucks here. How can I make it better? Let's paint the walls pink. Let's put balloons up. Let's make it look like a kindergarten class, and we'll all feel better about having to go on our commute, get there, be away from our families, be away from our children, be away from all this stuff, because we'll have nice pink walls, and we'll have Disney characters on the doors, and we'll have nice music going on, and we'll feel better about being pretty much back in preschool again. So what do they do?
Potluck Fridays too. Don't forget that.
So I have a really great post, and it was written. It's in book 3. It's called Male Space. And when I was writing about it, I was trying to be more general, but it also applies to the American workspace, which is men tend to be hierarchical. They tend to be more interested in things. They tend to be more interested in merit-based capitalism. Women tend to be more interested in collectivism, because that's the way we evolved. Women were the gatherers. They had to rely on each other for child rearing, for protection, for food. That's why women can form networks, like social networks, and they have a higher facility for communication than men do, because they evolved for something that was different than men did. Men had to hunt. We had to go out and find things. We had to figure shit out. We had to affect our will on the world. And if you did it better than the other guy, the chicks back at the gatherers, or the chicks back at the tribe, wanted to fuck that guy. So however better you were, like you're more competent than Joe, we're going to say, you're the leader, dude. Joe, tell us what we should do. Go hunt the mammoth. Okay, we're going to hunt the mammoth. Here's a better way to do it. Those kinds of things. Whoever had the better ideas, whoever was stronger, the physical prowess and mental prowess were things that could, were based on that meritocracy. Well, take all of that, take that human dynamic. Women are the collectivist gatherers, men are the hunter, individualist, capitalist, and you form businesses and organizations, which basically are tribes. And so you say, okay, this is going to be our male space. This is our corporation. This is our company, a company of people. This is going to be us. And these are the rules here. It's based on male meritocracy. Women say, no, that's sexist. We want to come in. They come in and they don't like what they see. They don't like the experience. So they change it to fit the way that they are. That's why you have those. That's pretty much that in a nutshell. And in corporate society, that is what's happening on a larger scale in society, which is we masculinize women and we feminize men, and then we get into these institutions where we have to cooperate together, and women realize they don't want to be in men's space, and men realize at some point that they don't want to be in women's space, because they're not meant to be there. We're not evolved for that. Our brains aren't structured that way. Our psychologies, our mental firmware is not meant to do those things, but we insist that we got it. We have to be inclusive and to do all this great. And it's really, I think at some point we're going to sort ourselves out, whether the meteor strikes the earth or not. We're going to sort ourselves out. Yeah, we'll sort ourselves out. Well, it might be ugly, but we'll sort ourselves out.
And then, what they don't talk about is after a woman, racks up a shitload of debt, bangs a bunch of dudes, becomes a borderline alcoholic, let's say 35 rolls around. Now she wants to settle down, but there's just one big problem when that happens. It's no more eggs in that carton, baby.
No more eggs.
No more eggs, man. Yeah, or they're like this. They're all stale. They're all brown and stale like this,
Did you see that that video by Paul Joseph Watson where he has I don't know. I want to find that video that he inserted into that video about no eggs, and it's like no eggs, no eggs, no eggs.
And you know what? If it's fun, I find extremely hilarious, right? Is how women, they will say, "I don't need no man, I don't need this, I don't need that," but come 28, oh, of course they do. Come 28, 29. 30, 31, those years start speeding up.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? They start getting bitter and angry. They all want to get married. They
Mm-hmm.
all want children, and they realize they've got to lie, but they realize it too late. And now
I
they're
I
just
I I think that if there's a blue pill for guys, there's also a blue pill for women, and that blue pill is, first of all, fempowerment narrative, feminism,
Mhm.
and the basically the lie that women can have it all. And the reason why that's so seductive to women is because, first of all, women they prioritize emotion before reason. Men tend to have the natural proclivity to prioritize reason before emotion. That's why we're naturally like that. But we're living right now in what I call a feminine correct society. So for to be correct, to be politically correct, to be socially acceptable, you have to think like a woman. Women's experience defines Western culture right now, and I don't
right.
think that we really appreciate that. So when what happens is women get this blue pill, and the blue pill is this: you need to be a strong, independent woman, and the prime directive of that is you never do anything for the express pleasure of a man. You
Mhm.
never do anything that would please a man. You don't need a man. You don't need a man. And so if you don't need a man, what that says to women is that feminism and women themselves are self-sufficient. They are self-satisfying, self-gratifying, like everything begins and ends with women. Everything is just, and so what they end up becoming is these autonomous things. So, like, I'm sure you've heard this before. Women will say, "Well, we don't need men, but we want men." Like, well, how does that work out? Well, because the beta buck side of hypergamy is already taken care of for you, either by you having a job or being more self-sufficient, being an independent woman. The
Right.
want part is, I want an alpha guy to bang me. That's what they want, because they don't here, when a woman says, I don't need a man, add this: I don't need a beta man. I don't need a blue
Yes.
pill man. I don't need a provider man anymore.
Yes.
I want a guy who's alpha, who's going to fuck me 3 ways to Tuesday. That's what she wants. So, but what happens is that mentality, the fempowerment narrative, teaches women that they are self-contained, self-fulfilling things, and that they don't need a man, and that eventually, and we facilitate that. So, like, you can freeze your eggs, you can go to the sperm bank if you want to. So if you haven't met Mr. Right by
Yep.
38, don't worry, girl, we've got you covered. Your benefits package at this company, because women have come in there and demanded it, is we froze your eggs for you. So you can go and fertilize those eggs, carry one to term, pick a hot guy from our catalog of sperm donors, and pick that guy, because they're never going to they don't care about the intelligence. They look for the guy who's like the freaking bodybuilder or the water polo player or whatever.
Yep.
They look
We're
for that guy.
still apes at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's statistically proven, is that women don't select for intelligence; they select for physical prowess. So if they see a guy who's good looking and has some muscularity to him, though, that guy is going to be the one that is going to have his sperm selected, and not the guy who's like this. Jeff Bezos' sperm is not going to be selected. I'm sorry to say.
They want strong babies. They want strong, healthy babies.
It's sexy son's theory. Yeah.
And there's two things, are you familiar with like the fertility business?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's fucking,
fertility rates too.
it's lucrative.
It's a racket.
These people are making so much money, and it's not even a guarantee, because there's a bunch of articles that's like, our favorite Christian Roosh posted something recently, and he posted like how this woman wrote an article. She's like, I've frozen my eggs because I've determined that I'm gonna live life on my own terms, yada yada. Now she's like, now here 10 years later, I froze my eggs, I can't get pregnant, I hate my life. And it's just like, you can't, I mean, how long can you deny reality before it catches up with you? And it's like, to quote Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park, life finds a way, and they're disturbing the natural balance. And I think you're right. I think things are in the very how can I say, like, the beginning stages of swinging back right now. I think it's going to take probably 10 more years, but I think within 10 years we'll see some sort of swinging back, because now it's like before, like being a slut was like edgy, or being a girl with tattoos was edgy, but now almost every girl's a slut. Every girl
Mhm.
has tattoos. Like the new edgy, the new desirable thing is like, whoa, she's like doesn't have tattoos. She acts like a lady. She
Mhm.
dresses modestly. She knows how to cook. She knows how to sew. And this, what by naming these things, it's hilarious how like feminists can have their laundry list of things they want a man to do. But if a man wants a simple five list thing that if any woman did these things, she would also be just living a healthier
Mhm.
life as a human. They
Mhm.
lose their shit. That's why Rich, like people think Rich like doesn't strategically plan these tweets out to fucking make the feminist psychos
Yeah.
angry, but he
I know
just
why does a like a simple list of 6 articles that aren't even all that crazy, why does that trigger like thousands of retweets and it makes the 6 o'clock news? Why? I mean, literally makes the 6 o'clock news. Why? Because what happens is when men we've become so accustomed to the idea that women are the primary sexual selectors in this society that anything that would challenge that is seen as heresy. It's seen as like it's hate speech. They don't want that. That's why it'll make the 6 o'clock news. So Rich can come up with like 6 things that women suggestions, not like you better do these things. She's just saying these, you want to have a successful life, ladies, do these things. Women lose their shit because they wait and blue pill beta man wait for those opportunities to flame back, to hit back at the patriarchy, and that's because they've been taught that that's what it is. But why is it that is so triggering? And the reason is because it's a challenge to women's control over reproduction. So
let
a woman has to jump through some hoops to qualify for a guy. To the very idea that a woman might ever have to do something for the express pleasure of a man, like I said, is something that is unconscionable to them, and so that's why they lose their shit.
I think that they deep down inside they want to, but it's just such a collective hive mind that they get. The
It's a
most
power
feminine
balance.
the most feminine girls, they don't. The more feminine a girl is, the less aggression she has in to fight back. Like if I were to
Mhm.
like yell at my girlfriend or be confrontational with her, she's like a super feminine girl. Like her default response to everything is laughter.
Mhm.
And you know, that kind of girl, she doesn't have the like the fucking aggressiveness in her to fight back and defend herself. And that's just
Mhm.
not in feminine behavior. That's just not femininity. So I think we're just kind of living in that kind of, it's kind of created its own kind of toxic cycle. I want to
Mhm.
shift here kind of back to your life story here. Now,
Mhm.
at what point did you decide that you wanted to start talking about intersexual dynamics, and when did you become Rollo Tomassi from you're the
Right.
magician man from your Clark
Musician,
Kent
magician.
personality? When did you shift into
I
Rollo Tomassi?
I actually took on the name Rollo Tomassi somewhere like around 2000, and I was a participant on this internet forum called So Suave.
Mhm.
It's still around today. It's over 20. Well, it's about 20 years old now. And it was kind of in the infancy with forums like alt fast seduction, which was Mystery Method and RSD and stuff like that. So it was like sort of a contemporary with those forums as well. And so I would be working, and when I had downtime, I would be online because there was this new thing called the internet. So I started looking at things. I was learning actually how to build web pages and get more involved in this because I knew that this was the thing of the future, right? And I came across I had a lot of friends because I had gamer friends, and my gamer friends all had the same story, which was they were going through divorces, or they were stuck in sexless marriages. And so I was trying to say, hey, look, I was trying to be as helpful as I could, but I this was right before I decided to go back to college, and I originally I have 2 degrees. I've got a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, and I've got a BS in behavioral psychology. And originally, it was I was just going to study art and I was going to minor in psychology. But during that time, I was on So Suave, and I was going to UNR here, and I was doing, as part of my minor in psychology, I was doing peer counseling. I did a little bit of child psychology as well, but it was mostly behavioral because that was more nuts and bolts. That really appealed to my like pragmatic sense. It was like something that you could actually see in real time, as opposed to this, let's sit on a couch and talk about our feelings. And that, like most people, their impression of psychology is really like a humanist cognitive psychology. That's psychotherapy. I'm talking about like training animals, as behaviorism and that kind of stuff.
Pavlov and stuff like that, right?
Pavlov, operative conditioning, that kind of stuff.
I forget his name, the guy with the when they every time they showed the child a rabbit, they played a loud noise.
B.F. Skinner.
And well, do you remember the scientist that did that? You know what I'm talking about?
I believe it's B.F. Skinner.
Yes, maybe I don't remember, to be honest, but I do remember
B.F.
that.
Skinner is probably B.F. Skinner is the most like recognizable behaviorist of psychology. So I got into that, and I was doing peer counseling with guys, and I would take the guys that nobody else wanted. So I took the guys who were in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and all of them had similar stories.
I didn't know that you were doing counseling. That's interesting.
It was like part. I remember. I'm like, I don't even have a degree at this point. I'm just like,
course,
I'm talking to the guy. It was just basically go and talk to these guys, because you have to do like a certain amount of hours doing these kinds of peer counselings. And so I did that, and then I realized that all the stuff I was learning about mystery method and all the stuff that I was learning about other guys' experiences on SoSuave were sort of coinciding with what I was learning in behavioral psychology. So I decided to double major. And I originally took psychology because I wanted to understand my clients, but it turned into something a little bit more than that. And so I got onto SoSuave, and then I started having these really good back and forth exchanges with people on SoSuave, and so I was having these. I was getting information from guys from all over the world at that point, like, because now it's this global, worldwide consortium. We didn't realize it at that time, because this is like 2002 when this happened. And so I became a moderator on SoSuave. They asked me to be a moderator because I was having such great conversations, and people were coming to me for advice. And so I was doing this about 2005, 2004, 2000. Well, actually, 2003 is when my brother-in-law died. He killed himself. He hung himself as a result of my sister-in-law divorcing him. His story. A lot of people have heard this before, so I'll try to be as quick as I can here. Is my sister-in-law, which is my wife's sister, very good looking to this day, in her 50s, still for her age, she's a very good looking woman. And she ended up getting pregnant when she was 19 years old by the guy who hung himself. And everybody thought he was going to bail. They thought he was not going to do the right thing, but he did. He changed his life. He changed his ambitions, changed the course of his life so that he could support this woman and his child, and married her and did the right thing. Had another kid later on in their 20s. So they had 2 children out of this. And when he got to be about 40, right around 40, he had done everything he could so that when they were empty nesters, that he could finally have the life that he wanted with her. He was building, this guy is like salt of the earth kind of guy. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't without his faults. He was, but he's the kind of guy who would go and build a house. He would literally go and learn how to build a house and build a house. He'd buy the property and build the house. So busted his ass for close to 20 years, 25 years. And what happened is she ended up meeting a guy who was a millionaire. I'm not going to tell you what he does for a living, but just say comes across a guy who's a millionaire. They used to work in a resort town here in California. And
wow.
And she decides that it's time for her to leave. She's about 40. He's about 40. The kids, the first kid was off to college. The daughter was just about to enter into college. She decided that this is time. It's time now for her to get with her, the boat that had come in. The millionaire's here. He's interested in me. He wants to give me the happily ever after. She's going to leave. And the problem that happened is that the guy was my brother-in-law was very blue pill, and he literally could not live without her. And I think he realized that there was a sexual market value imbalance between the two of them, because she was a 9 and he was probably a 6.
So why was she with him initially?
Well, because she got knocked up by him
At 19.
at
Ah,
19,
okay.
and she
Okay, so she
was
did the shotgun
so,
wedding
so
thing.
she was doing the right thing too, because the family's religious, and
Right.
daddy is an alpha, and you do the right damn thing. And so she did. Now those influences aren't there so much, and so she says, I got a millionaire here. I got a guy who's salt of the earth, but he's never going to be a millionaire. She goes with this guy. And as a result of that, this is how I know about suicide, because men, you want to know why men are more successful at suicide than women are? Because women attempt suicide, men complete suicide. And the reason for that is because you will never know that a man is going to kill himself. He doesn't go and announce it. He doesn't go, I'm feeling this way on Twitter or Instagram. I'm feeling like I want to jump off a bridge or something like it. Guys don't do that. They're done.
Yeah.
They decide they're going to do it. They're going to do it, and they're not going to fuck around with sleeping pills or whatever else. They go and they put a noose around their neck, or they put a gun in their mouth. That's usually how men kill themselves.
Yep.
And like really quick. And usually men, and I've the guys that I have met as a result of being Rollo Tomassi, who have told me that my work has saved their lives. The men will plan. Men are planners when it comes to suicide. They don't tell anybody, but they arrange things. Like I had a guy at the first 21 con come up to me and say, I had planned to kill myself. I had a date set that I was going to kill myself. I was going to, anyways, I was setting up my insurance so the kids would be taken care of. I was doing all these things, but I just couldn't live with who I was or what I'd become. So he was going to do that. Read my book, changed his mind, erased the date, and is now alive as a result of that. That guys will plan things like that. So that's how I know about suicide. That's how my experience with suicide has been with that. And then also I had another friend who put a gun in his mouth because he literally couldn't live without his girlfriend. He was a DJ here in Reno, actually.
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. So, John, can I take a break for 1 second? I just got to take a piss. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead. So who's enjoying this? This is it's going pretty long. I'm gonna sneeze, I think. Guys, make sure you put a nice comment on this video if you're watching it on the replay. And just a shout out to you guys that are watching from the beginning all the way even till now. You guys are the real winners. I like the guys who see it through, no stone unturned. Really happy to see. I like seeing this part of Rollo because I know Rollo behind the scenes, and I know you guys know I'm a really good judge of character, obviously being the body language guy and everything, psychology background. And I just wanted to show this side of Rollo because he really is a good man behind the scenes. Like he really, really is a sincerely good man. And, it's just, we're so, thank you for the $3 super chat. If you want to donate, you want to send a donation and see George Bruno pump those weights, click on that link in the chat right there, streamlabs.com/modern life dating channel. This is what we do, man. Like, we talked about what happened with the Red Man group and the 21 convention. And honestly, what did we say? They would turn into purple pill grifters just after money. And lo and behold, what happened? Their show is completely trash and dead. They have nobody paying attention. The convention ticket sales are in the trash. And it's all led by Anthony Zelda Posters Johnson, who is just a complete psychopath. The guy is a completely crazy person. And time will show you, boys. Time will show every single one of you guys out there. You will watch his business implode. You will watch him self-destruct. And this is, like I said, these are two guys who are part of Rule Zero. When you guys come out and meet us in Vegas, you'll be able to see, like I said, me, Rollo, like we're especially all of us, like we vet each other, and like we are the real deal. And this is an example of a guy behind the moniker, if you will, of Rollo Tomassi. It's real deal. Good. I'm just telling people that you are sincerely a good man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, getting back to the suicide thing is what kind of woke me up. I think it was at that point that I think I was really red pilled, because it was the suicide, but it was also the way that people reacted to that suicide, and how, like, what was interesting to me is, like, I was really kind of struggling with it for a while. And what really woke me up was the reactions that women had to the suicide. Like, I would say, like, he killed himself because you were going to divorce him so you could get with this millionaire, right? And I mean, a lot of fucked up shit. And these are people who are supposed to be like really good, devout Christians. And so I remember relating this to like women at work or something, and they would take her side. And I'm like, how is this, like, how are you taking this person's side? She was clearly the catalyst for this man's suicide. They didn't care. That was my first experience with the sisterhood uber alles, was women who didn't even know, anonymous women who didn't know who this woman was. If it was a hypergamous choice, if it was her choice to get with the millionaire, then that was okay, and they were behind that. And I can still see that today in like women's forums right now, where they will get together and come together and get ideas to like trick a guy into believing that the woman is pregnant, or find some way to get back at the guy, or to like, what was it? You can see this on like daytime talk shows, like where the guy with the woman tricks the guy into marrying her because he thinks that the baby is his. And the guy says, screw you, I'm out. He figures it out and he leaves. We're mad at the guy.
Mhm.
We're not mad at the girl for trying it. We're mad at the guy.
How are
And the
we
reason,
so cucked as a society? That pisses me off. That righteously pisses me off.
because we are so gynocentric right now. Whatever's correct, whatever works for women is the right thing. That's why I say female correct. So the guy leaving the woman when she's pregnant and it's not his kid and she tried to trick him, he's the asshole because he won't take on the responsibility. And it doesn't matter who the kid is. I talk about paternity, the war on paternity all the time. The reason we have a war on paternity is because we live in a gynocentric social order where everything that benefits women is correct and anything that might benefit men is incorrect, is the bad thing. So that's how I got the name. I actually took from LA Confidential back when I was at So Suave. Everybody has, internet handles and stuff.
Yep.
And I felt like because I was sort of connecting these dots and revealing these truths that I knew about Evo Psych and behavioral psych and everything else. I felt like I was Rollo Tomassi, right? I was getting away with my crime, because if I had gone with my real name, I probably would have got fired, or would have got doxxed, or would have got swatted.
Right.
You can be a feminist and be an outspoken feminist today and not lose your job, but you cannot be Rollo Tomassi and say what I do and write the books that I do without risking your job and your family and your daughter getting harassed, or somebody wanting to come kill your dog because you said something that they didn't like, that it went against the female correct narrative. So that's why I took the name Rollo Tomassi, because he is in the movie LA Confidential, the story LA Confidential. Rollo Tomassi was just sort of a name given to a random criminal who got away with his crime. And so if you ever go watch the movie. It's really good. But so that's why I took the name Rollo Tomassi. It wasn't because I'm like, I'm some fiendish guy who wants to get away with things. It's not.
Listen, the guy who said that, it came from a fucking inbred sister dating retard who can't
and we
read.
know about that now, don't we?
And we got fucking the black belt and hamburger helper. So fuck them both.
So that's where it really all started. And then from there, the guys in Sosov said, you need to check out Roosh and Royce. And I did. And I started talking with Roosh. I was really on good terms with Roosh in the early days. Also Royce. If you go back to their early blogs, you'll see that my blog was in their sidebar for a very long time. It was Roosh, Rollo, and Royce for forever till 2015, and Roosh decided that he wanted to do neo-masculinity and throw Red Pill under the bus. And Royce decided that he wanted to go ethno-nationalist, racial, political stuff. I have always been Red Pill. I've never changed my tune. This is me, and this is what I'm going to talk about, and this is what I think is important. So I'm not going to convert to free speech, or being an advocate for free speech. I think it's important, but I'm not going to talk about that. There's other people that do it better than I do. I started the blog in 2011, and pretty much took the best of the debates and the talks that we had on So Suave, and I rejiggered them into blog posts that were a little more cohesive. Then in 2013, just 2 years after I started the blog, I had people saying, you really need to put this in a book because it will help, I guess, legitimize what you're talking about if it was in a book rather than being some random Yahoo on the internet. So that's what I did. And I thought that then that the first book was going to be the only book I was ever going to write.
When did you write that book? What year was that?
I published it in 2013, October 1st, 2013. So really, I started writing it back in 2002, but most of the material in there is sort of the best stuff that I did for The Rational Male. But again, I took those blog posts, which were previously discussions that we had had, and I turned those blog posts into something that was readable, that was in book format. So they have evolved over the course of, say, about 13 years, the chapters and everything that I go into in there. And I wrote the book because people ask me this all the time. They say, well, why did you even do this? And I'm like, well, first of all, I wanted to help guys, and then second of all is I read The Game. I read Neil Strauss's The Game, and I thought, oh man, this is great. This finally, there's a book for us, right? And I read it, and I'm like, this is not for us. I was very underwhelmed. It was entertainment. It wasn't about like learning. I mean, there's a few, tips and things in there, but it was about an account of what had happened with like Project Hollywood and Mystery and Style and all the regular PUA characters that we for some reason today think are still, locked in time in 2005, and that's our impression of a pickup artist is Mystery with the elevator boots and the top hat and the black fingernails. I read that book and I'm like, this is not the book I want to read. So I wrote the book that I thought that I wanted to read. And since then, since 2013, going on 7 years now, it has become the Bible of the Red Pill. And it has become the #1 book that people read in this sphere. And it has been responsible for saving men's lives, changing men's lives, whether that's through giving them tools or waking them up in some way. I never intended.
I want to show the book right here, just for you guys. It's The Rational Male.
That's preventive medicine, or excuse me, positive masculinity.
That's the third book. So the first book is Rational Male #1, and this is the book he's talking about. It has 1,531 with 81% 5-star reviews, 9% 4 stars. So over 90% of the people reading it.
And by the way, if you go and you click on that and you look at the very first review of there, the top review, that's from our good friend Bobby Lewis right there. He does this 3-star review, and if you look at like how many people have found it helpful, because that's the way that Amazon works. It's like you can't say you can't up or down vote something. You can only up vote things. So what he does is he goes back in there, logs on to a dynamic IP, and goes in and clicks that once a day, so that stays up on top of there, because that's how petty that fucking guy is.
Wow.
And so if you look at the one right below that, that's the one I want people to click on, because that one right there, the second one down, that's the one where I tell people, like, go click helpful on that one and try to push this shit off of here, because essentially when all that crap was going down, good old DDJ, that's why it says Bob right there, because he wanted me to know who it was that was doing that.
Yep.
Who would put that up there. And you'll go, like, it's at 187 right now. I guarantee you after this podcast, it'll be 188 or 189, because he'll go and he'll freshen it up, because that's how petty these fucking guys are.
Well, here's some recent ones on Valentine's Day. You got 5 stars. February 6th, 5 stars. February 5th, 5 stars. February 4th, 5 stars. February 4th again.
There are more 5-star reviews than there are 3-star reviews. But unfortunately, that's just how you're always going to get haters, and you're always going to get guys. And usually the more recent haters are the guys that Anthony has decided that, hey, go and downvote him. Go and give him shit. We don't want him to make any money with the book that actually saved their own lives. We don't want that to happen.
Well, it's just, he's just angry because he wasted his life, and he's just, the internet exposes everybody. That's why, you got to be transparent these days.
New Nova is asking, will you release a second edition? Yeah, it's already in the works right now. I have an editor that's working on it while I am also doing book 4 right now. And the reason why people want a second edition is because, like I was saying before, when I wrote the first book, I thought that was going to be the only book I was ever going to write. I'd never written a book before, and this is in the infancy of self-publishing too. Mm-hmm. So I made the font too small. I tried to make it as nice as because I'm a designer, right? I tried to cram as much into it. I wanted to make sure people were going to pay like a minimum for this. Like I raised the price later, but it's like I started out at $9.99. Now I think it's like $13.99, because you can only sell certain size books for a certain price point on
Mm,
Amazon. So
okay.
I try to stay as low to that price point as I can, because it's more important for me for guys to get this information, read it, and be changed by it than it is. I mean, hey, I like the money. Thank you for paying for it. But like, it's more important for me for people to actually buy the physical copy and hand it off to somebody else, like later
Yeah.
when they're done. You probably, well, you haven't seen this, but if you ever went to any of the conventions, you'll probably see this when we do Vegas. But like, people who want me to sign their books, they'll hand me this book, and it's like just all, like
Tattered.
dog-eared, and they've like highlighted it in 4 different colors. It's got liner notes in it, because the Rational Male is a living text. It's something you don't just read it once and put it on your shelf. You come back to it at different points in your life, and you reread certain aspects of it. You highlight it, you study it, you write liner notes. So what's applicable to you at, like, say you read it and you're 25 years old, what's applicable to you at 25 and what's applicable to you at 35 might be different. So you'll come back to it later and you'll go, oh, Rollo said this about women, or I'm experiencing a new woman and she's doing this. What did Rollo have to say about that? So you will come back to it and read it and sort of gain, go back for the tools that apply to what it is that you're working on right then and there. So that's the first book. The second book was Preventive Medicine. Preventive Medicine is built on a timeline of what guys can expect from women at different phases of their maturity. I base that book on a timeline. And the timeline is from women from the ages of 15 years old, girls from 15 years old, all the way up to 50 years old, right up to about menopause. And people will lose their minds that I started it at 15 for girls. And I say, yeah, because I have teenage guys who will ask me about 15-year-old girls. So it's not like, oh, Rollo's a dirty old man, he wants to get with 15-year-olds. No, that's not it. It's like, I deal with guys who are in high school. So that's why I accommodated for that. And then it goes up through, the epiphany phase, 29 to 31 years old, and what women are interested in and how they prioritize things. So I wrote that book in response to guys asking, or they would say, like, of my first book, they would say, man, I wish I would have had this before I got divorced. I wish I would have had this before I made the decisions that I made, or whatever I got with that girl, or I got married, or whatever. And so I wrote a book, because so it can warn guys, so they have at least some sort of, like, it's not exactly what's going to happen, but it's a roadmap for them. And then the third and last book, or the last book that I've done, fourth one's coming up, but the third one was called Positive Masculinity, and I wrote that mostly about red pill parenting, because I had so many guys talking about, what should I teach my son, or when should I give my son the Rational Male so he doesn't make the same mistakes I made. So I wrote that primarily for parents, and then that kind of, like, the second half of that book morphed into how masculinity has become what it is, like we were talking about earlier, and what guys can do about it. So that's why I wrote that one.
One of the things I really love, this is the thing that before I found out, before we connected and became, like, associated on the previous show, and now Rule Zero, was this. I want to share this with the audience, and I want to share this because this is so true. And I think a lot of men, they kind of give up hope, but this thing right here is a chart that you made, and it talks
That's
about
my most infamous chart. Yes.
And it talks about, so on the left-hand side, we have SMV, which is sexual market value, and it goes from 1 to 10. And then on the bottom here, we have the age range here. And so according to this chart, it's 23 for women. They peak at their sexual market value. This is when they're hottest, they're most tolerable, most attractive. And
agency is at the highest point.
Agency is at the highest point. And then it goes down to here. That's at like 31. And what's so funny is, like, men, and it's so funny because I used to look at this chart when I was like 25, 26, and I'd be like, am I really going to get better as age? And I can tell you right now, at 34, I can't believe how awesome life is, how much young women are still interested in me. And like, it's just I'm literally witnessing my life go on the peak. Now, I'm not just saying you're going to age as a man and this is inevitably going to happen. You have to, like, put the work in, of course. But for you men out there, even if you're restarting and you're in your 30s, 31, 32, whatever, hell, even if you're 35, there's plenty of time moving forward. And hell, even if you're in your 40s, you're still here up at the peak, man. Troy Francis was talking a bit about it on Rule Zero, which was this past Saturday on Richard's channel. And Troy was saying the best year of his life was when he was 39 years old.
Mhm.
Daniel Craig signed the contract to be James Bond at 38. There's tons and tons. I'm looking. Look at Hugh Jackman, the peak of his career at Wolverine. He's like 46 years old, insanely jacked and everything.
40 years old. Hugh Jackman at 40 years old was voted People Magazine's sexiest man alive when he was 40.
There you go.
There you go. I put that thing together on a whim, actually. And it made it into the book, obviously, but I put it there, and I can remember building that thing in Adobe Illustrator, and I was putting it together, and the original post is from it's called Final Exam Navigating the Sexual Marketplace, and I wrote that, or I built that up because I was doing it was sort of like the end of the school year. And I had people saying, Rollo, you should be the guy who gives the commencement speech at my high school or something, right? So I wrote a post. I okay, I'll do it. And so that was my commencement speech for who, if you're a young man and you're just graduating high school, this is your commencement speech. This is what you need to know going out into the world as an 18-year-old adult, right? This is what you need to know. And so I put that out there. And of course, what happens is as soon as I put that out there, I become known for that graph. Yeah. And they'll go, he didn't go and get all this research. He didn't research any of this. There's no stats that show any of this. There's no nothing. I'm like, I did it because that is my impression of when women are going to be at their hottest, men are going to be at their potentially highest sexual market value. And you know what? What's interesting is, yeah, you're right. I didn't. And if you read that post, I go and I say that right there. I said, this is completely speculative on my part. This is me saying this, but people saw that because they never linked back. They'd get the graph, but they would never link back to the original post on it. So they would like talk shit about the graph. But the problem is it's accurate. It's very, very accurate. In fact,
scarily accurate. Scarily accurate.
Now, I published that back in, I think, 2012. And when I did that, I had people who would send me graphs of other data that would corroborate that. So like if you go and you look at what ages that Hollywood actresses and actors are their most marketable or are at their peak of their careers, women are at 23 years old. Men are at about 36 to 38 years old, somewhere around there. Identical to what to the graph that you just looked at. There's other ones like what is it when men make their like scientists and stuff, they make their biggest discoveries and stuff, it's usually right around 35, 36 years old, because it takes longer for men to mature. It takes longer for men to develop into their full potential. So what people do is when they see that, like women get pissed off because it's revealing the game. It's showing men in a graphic format what they can expect from women and men. So women go, well, you think women hit the wall when they're 30? No, but they are less competitive than they were at 30 than they were at 23. So it's not like women don't. It's like not that there aren't some really good looking 30-year-old women. I'm sure that there are. It doesn't mean that they hit the wall. The wall is not about a woman's physique. It's about what's up here. It's about, is she able to compete with her? Is the 33-year-old girl able to compete with the 23-year-old version of herself? The answer is always no.
Example. Take a look at this. One of my favorite actresses, Scarlett Johansson, 20 years old on the left-hand side. And look at her now, 34.
Still attractive, but you can't compete with 20-year-old Scarlett.
Cannot. Again here, 20 years old, 34 years old. I mean, you know what's funny? I had a feminist hater recently say some stuff to me, and this is how out of touch some of these psychopaths are. She said to me, and I quote, "This is the kind of guy who would go to the bar and hit on all the girls that are not old enough to drink because women his age want nothing to do with therapy."
Yeah.
Unbelievable how
and you know
out of fucking touch they are.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, bro. I do not need it. I do not need it because you know why? At the end of the day, those young girls versus the old girls, it's one thing and it's one thing only. And it is right here. I'm queuing it up. It's right there. You got no eggs.
No eggs.
You got
No
no eggs.
eggs.
I don't want those empty powdered eggs that you got in your ovaries. I'm not interested. And any man who says I prefer older women than younger women to have sex with them either has no sexual experience, he has a fetish, or he's a fucking liar. Period.
Or that's his only option. So
Or yeah,
what
or
happens
that's
is
his only option.
guys, I meet guys like this all the time. They go, well, I can't really relate with women who are 23 years old. I'm 34, 35. I don't want anybody that's younger than. And the thing is like you make men are notorious for making their necessities a virtue. So you look at a guy like was it Keanu Reeves and his girlfriend. Now Keanu is older than she is. He's technically like 8 or 9 years older than she is.
She looks terrible.
She looks like his mother.
Dude,
and
she is
you know
awful.
what? When they released the photos of that, you know damn well that they knew exactly what was going to happen. They had to know
Dude,
what was
it
going to
looks
go
like his motherfucking grandma. For you guys
Mhm.
out there, this is exactly what Rollo is talking about right here. This is Keanu Reeves, ultra movie celebrity superstar, and this is his girlfriend on the left-hand side.
She is 46 years old. My wife is in her, I won't tell you how old she is. She's in her early 50s, and she does not look that old. She does not have gray hair.
It looks like his grandma.
She looks 60. And she knows that, and he knows that too. And they're doing this for effect. They know damn well what's going on. She could dye her hair and look, probably 10 years younger if she wanted to, but she doesn't. And that's the whole thing. And people go, well, women love it. They go, oh, I love him that much more. He's finally with a woman who's age appropriate. I'm like, well, if he was 35 and she was 23, if there was that 8-year difference right there, you wouldn't have the same opinion. Because she looks older than him, we say, oh, because we live in a female correct society, that is what women approve of, and they don't approve of you being 34 and getting with a 23-year-old girl. They don't approve of that because that's not female correct. Why? Because there's more women who have wasted their time up through their 30s into their early 30s. And now they have been told. Remember I told you about the social conventions that are there for women at every age? One of those conventions is the men your age are infantile, they have fragile egos, and they only want to bang girls who are like 23, 25 years old, somewhere around there, because society teaches them that. No, that's their natural impulse. But we have social conventions that are there to sort of soften the blow for women who've hit the wall. And what's that social convention? Blame it on men. It's the reason why you are miserable and you have no babies and you have no eggs is because of men's fault, not because of the decisions you made, but because men won't cooperate in a feminine correct society.
Yeah. Well, I think that's gonna do it. I think this was phenomenal.
This was long. Yeah, it was good.
We did 3 hours, man.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much, guys. One's
Sure.
in the chats for Rollo Tomassi, man. For you guys that want to support Rollo, you can go find him at, is it therationalmail.com or rational mail? Oh, he left. I think he left by accident. I believe it is rationalmail.com. I'll share it on the screen here. Rationalmail.com. Rationalmail.com. Let me just double check. Therationalmail.com. Check him out. Oh, he's back. Hold on one second. I thought you just left on me.
I wasn't bugging out. No, sorry.
Okay. No, I was just telling everybody, you have a very amazing website, The Rational Mail. And for you guys that want to see us live, don't forget that we're going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada on April 18th. Please go to Rollo Tomassi's Patreon, sign up to become a member, and you'll see a link to purchase a ticket today. He only has 10 tickets left. Richard only has 10 tickets left. I think Ryan and Troy have 15 tickets left. I am sold out, so you can no longer get it through me. If you can't make it out to the event and you want to purchase his works, you can get his books here, The Rational Mail. Please be sure to go and leave a 5-star review at Amazon as well to counter all the fucking trolls that are being nasty towards him. And if you just want to give him a donation, click on the donation button, and it's just going to help to support the things that he's got going
I have
on.
greyhounds. That's another thing. You guys, wow, everybody knows about me.
Yeah, so he loves the greyhounds. He got a bunch of dogs, and he's a good man. He loves dogs. I mean, that's all I need to
See how
know.
nice I am. Yeah.
You are a patron saint. I'm gonna build a statue of you.
All right.
That's gonna do it, guys. Listen, thanks everybody for checking out.
Sure.
So you know, this week we've got John from Bulldog Mindset coming on Tuesday. Wednesday, Charlie from Cultivate Crypto will be with me on the Tokyo Crypto Show, talking about what's going to happen with the next move in the Bitcoin price. On Thursday, Ed Lattimore is going to be on the show.
Nice.
And then Friday, we have free consultation Friday. And then Saturday, we have Dude Party. So you're not going to want to miss out. Hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment that boosts me up in the algorithm. If you can't support me in any other way, at least leave a positive comment.
And Rule Zero will be Saturday, and it will be on my channel. I get to host this time. So
okay, and we'll be Rule Zero on Rollo Tomassi's channel. If you just type in Rollo Tomassi at YouTube, go over, subscribe to Rollo's work. He puts out work every week. So until then, boys, thank you so much for listening. Get out there, make money, make muscles, learn game, and we will see you next time. Peace out.